turn this music down. What's going on, fellas?
Hello, brother. How you doing, man?
Not bad. JT?
Airborne, everybody. Well, say, JT, how you doing?
Uh-oh. I think it's...
Uh-oh.
I'm doing great.
Oh, there
I'm
it is.
doing
There you
great.
go.
Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't unmute. I was in the
like-
mutrix, as we say.
The Mutrix. That sucks when you're on radio, you know? No.
Yeah, right.
How you doing, brother? How you holding up?
I'm doing good, man. I think we're at a point where everybody's I shouldn't say everybody's, but some people's tensions are getting high, It's people going stir crazy in the house, and I myself am kind of one of the laziest people on the planet, so I love just sitting around the house. It's not my favorite thing to do, man. I'm gonna be pissed off when I got to go back to work, to be honest with you. But no, but yeah, it's driving some people crazy.
Week one, too, aren't we? Just week one, is it? Has it even been a week?
Yeah, I know, barely. And too, you got my girlfriend's in sales at Rooms to Go, and selling furniture, and nobody comes in all day. So she just sits there, and they just are on their phone. It's horrible. She hates it,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they got, and a lot of people are doing that. I'm imagining at a car salesman, what he's doing right now, and all his money is commission, So they're all of those people. Everybody's just completely hurting. That's the good thing, I guess, is usually, it's just like somebody or yourself, like out of work for a week or two because you're sick or something. But this is everybody's in the same boat. So I guess it's sucks, but it's a little better than everybody can relate to what you're going through, at least.
That's what they were saying in the scramble of everybody getting everything. One thing people weren't grabbing were like lottery tickets. Like people weren't worried. Yeah, well,
I'm addicted to those things. But
I mean, well, not maybe even the scratch offs, but like the typical ones where it's like week to week, or you buy the one for the drawing. I don't know. They were saying sales were down overall, and I was just like, interesting. End of the world. Nobody wants to win the millions. Maybe we'll find out all that's been rigged too. Have you guys seen the McMillions documentary?
Oh yeah, I watched that. That was
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, it took 20 years for him to be able to tell us the truth about the deal. I mean, I believe that was under seal or something. They couldn't even report on it until.
Yes. Or I thought they had said like the day it was to hit the courts or whatever that 9/11 happened, or it was.
Yeah, that's right.
Their court was slated for the day after. One of the two, but it was right there. Not that was a cover up to 9/11 happened to make sure this didn't come to light. But it was, if somebody get that misconstrued out of our mouths, we're not saying that.
There's so many of those, right?
We're not saying that, folks. It's just, the McDonald's game was rigged in general, right? I mean, what did you take away from that? That, it was like a mafia guy or an ex-cop that ran the security for the games. Because, of course, McDonald's didn't make those. They used an outsourced company, like, that made the Happy Meals, too, or something for them.
I think one of the most surprising things was the guy that was the whole shebang ringleader, the guy that stole the tickets out of, he was the head of security. He got 3 years in jail.
Yeah.
And I guess it was interesting because I think the most interesting part about it, the reason it was compelling for people was because, you saw these average people that got sucked into this, and they were like, oh, I get $1 million. I get $1 million. And then it was like, the weight of the world was on their shoulder. I mean, they really could not enjoy the money quite, And on top of that, some of them, the one black lady, she had to pay half of it back. She got $1 million, $50,000 a month for 20 years. She had to pay the mob $25,000 a year for 20 years. Then
taxes are on her.
Yeah, the taxes were $15,000. So she ended up with 35 grand out of 50,000, and they got 25 of it.
Yeah.
So she got 10 grand every time she got that check for a year, and it probably and the guilt and the and the worry that if you diss the mob, they're gonna come kill you. Oh God, man, she was
your family.
That poor lady. That poor lady. Oh, she's probably so happy to be out of that. You know?
No, and that's what I took. It was like everyone was you had to pay sometimes, we have this 50,000 piece, but I want 10. They want, something up front. Went to the one guy.
Well, she paid 50 grand up front. She mortgaged her house to get $10,000 a year. It was, and then she got caught. Yeah. And then they got caught. So.
Oh man.
Yeah, the one guy was sweating like a fish that talked to him. He didn't.
Oh God, that was so funny. Oh yeah.
Oh, you need a towel there, sir? Yeah. Oh, it's funny. So anyway, lots of people.
It's interesting how when those kinds of things happen, and then they seal those records, and it just shows you how they cover anything that's gonna really kind of mess with people's idea of the structure of our society and monetary and law enforcement and all that. They seal it, and then how long are the JFK sealed for? They're 100 years they did it.
Well, that's funny because Trump declassified it all a few summers ago, except for 4 more pages, and those are supposed to come out anytime. I honestly believed it was the 4 to 5 pages not done yet really narrowed in on who it truly was, and we needed to go through a few more things yet before we'd get that. So Trump did come in and kind of,
Yeah, I know he did, but I thought they held a lot more than 4 pages back. But I mean,
maybe you're right. Maybe it's maybe I heard
those
that wrong.
Those four. If they have CIA written at the top of them, I guess that's
Yeah,
it's that's the biggest one for me. It's before my lifetime's over, we need to see what happened there, and that'll open up a whole can of worms for what happened after that with the clowns in America.
Yeah. Well, and I agree. There was a guy on his deathbed, I think 2 or 3 summers ago, that talked about that he was part of it and was hired, and it was the CIA, and they had 5 safe houses. His story was really I don't know why else a really 90-year-old man on his deathbed who really did work for the CIA would even sit there and just go through all that. Unless it was they're hey, do this for us as you're dying anyway, just to help, I don't know why this doesn't add up, but this guy did do that 2 summers ago. He's he was hired, he was down there. He said they had 5 safe houses for the CIA. They were working with the local mob or whatever, and they were moving around these houses every couple of weeks, getting rid of one, going to the next. And they were there 5 months prior. And they just went to an elaborate story about it all. And it just sounds like the best thing I ever heard, if you made it up or not, And far too long, people don't give these, this is what I always say. Everything I think we know about these, little groups and the programs that we have are always dissenters. You could even take Edward Snowden. Now, we know the reason he did that was possibly he worked for the CIA, and then they implanted him over to the NSA to do exactly what he did. And the story comes out he was a patriot. He couldn't go on any longer knowing these things existed. It all sounds great, and it's actually true. And the stuff he released was true NSA tools. But it was to create a whole bunch of noise over there for the NSA so the CIA can operate a little smoother over here. So it's internal wars going on between the 17 intelligence agencies for all these years. And I being in the Navy, and you'd hear the CIA would work with this intelligence group, come on the scene, flip their thing. What do you guys got? And they'd go, oh, we got this, we found that. And so what do you guys got? Nothing. And then walk, they want the information, but they don't want to return So that's always, then we heard that with 9/11, oh, this agency couldn't talk with that agency, but they knew things. They were tracking this guy, but they never told the CIA, or the CIA never told the FBI. And they blamed it on the interdepartmental conversations and emails. And well, hell, we saw it with the Trump Russia lawyer. Like, did you work for the CIA? And yeah, I did. And he didn't like that answer. And, I mean, it's a funny business, but that's where I believe Space Force comes in. Trump could have been trolling this whole time. I don't really think it's, we're going to go to Mars. Maybe. But what I think it's really about is the information. And if you look into the key details of Space Force, they sit at the top now of all other 17 agencies, and they get to collect all the info, and they're not part of all other branches report to the state. We looked into this. It's like everything falls under the Department of the State at one point, with some little clause, all branches except for the Space Force. It doesn't have this backing yet, and I don't know if it ever will, but for some reason it sits out in limbo. And it's almost like if you're Space Force, you're really worried about the satellites and the actual information. So I don't know. I don't know how deep that goes. We're still digging. But
yeah,
that's where, we got it all.
It's interesting how long we've had NASA, and it's never been really a part of the government, right?
Yeah, it's like they get the funding. They get like the, there's always that clause sit out there for them for funding. But you're right.
I wonder if they're on purpose, they kept it separate.
They do that plausible deniability. You guys have probably seen enough of these people that go undercover. The government used to like to send people undercover, but when it came down to push and shove, like some of the, I'm just sending this guy into the Hell's Angels undercover, FBI. Well, then, they would want, sometimes they know they're going to be put into positions to like, here's a knife, man, you kill the guy, or take this drug, man. And the actual federal agents can never do that. Whereas if you hire Woodman here as a contractor and let him do all that stuff, he could. See what I'm saying? So they always would typically go to the, contractor guy. And then if you really get caught up in some shit, Woodman, we just turn our back on you anyway, and we don't know anything. It's
wash your hands.
If you look at all these, if you read these books of the abuse of that for 30 years at this point, 40 years, it's just nuts.
Yeah, that was me. Sorry.
Oh,
yeah, they went through. It's mind-boggling the amount of lies that are allowed to be told. It's just what do you do?
I think the year 2020, the end of it for sure. You cover everything that's going to happen this whole entire year of 2020, and you watch and see. I think a lot of answers will be brought out at that point. All we can do is speculate at this point, but there's going to be a lot of things happen this year. What a full year, I believe, that's my belief, what a full year of info we're going to have. Some of it's too much for people, Oh
my gosh. Am I missing Trump? Let me pull this forward. Oh, okay. I don't think that's staying live.
So last night, guess what I did?
Uh-oh.
I watched The Hunt.
Okay, I've been bringing that up. Nobody knows what I'm talking about because they ended up putting that on hold because of the heightened tensions a year ago or something, right? School shootings, just the whole rhetoric going on. But go ahead and tell everyone. Take a minute to tell everyone what that's actually about.
Crazy.
It was awesome. It was awesome. I'm sorry, it was awesome, and I knew everybody was freaking out about nothing really. But it was kind of a little bit of a parody on both the conspiracy theorists kind of people and then the snowflakes. And it was funny. It was really, really gruesome. But it basically the good guys won, I mean, that they basically made the elites were these evil, self-absorbed pricks, and
So the premise is they're hunting deplorables, right? Like,
right.
That's what the
yeah, she comes right out. I mean, they actually use the word. I couldn't. I mean, she said in one part of the movie, she says, "Well, Well, I was gonna say rednecks, but I decided to use deplorable. But I mean, it's interesting because there was this one scene in one of the guys that was a deplorable, and there was they figured out that they were actually in another country, and so they get on a train, and then it's full of refugees, and he's like, "No, they're crisis actors. Those guys are crisis actors." So they kind of took the idea of crisis that we think everything's a crisis actor. They exploited it, but it was funny at the same time. And then they did the same thing with the snowflakes of like one of the scenes at the end of the snowflake winning the fight, he's like, and climate change is real, it was just like stuff like that. It was like they didn't go one way or the other, and it was pretty cool, man. I mean, everybody was freaking out about it.
Yeah, a year ago, I remember the hype. And I mean, they're making a movie about hunting us, and it was that was what was coming out, and people were like, that sounds horrible. But hey,
well, I mean, yeah, and I just had in the back of my mind, I had the thought, well, we're gonna win. I mean, the underdog always wins in those movies, so it's like that's the whole point of it is. But I mean, they did a number on that one. It was very kind of relevant, and it was an entertaining and mysterious. It was a good movie.
It kind of just, you talking about it reminds me of one I watched as growing up called Surviving the Game, and it was with Ice-T.
Oh yeah.
And he was a homeless, and they kind of confront him like, hey, we're here to help, man. And it was a guy kind of under the guise of working at the church, and here's our card, and it was all on him to call, but he called and he's like, yeah, I'll put you to work, man, that's what we do. But they took him out in the middle of nowhere, and then they wake him up like, you got a couple of minutes to get up and get out of here, we're gonna eat a nice breakfast and then we'll be hunting you. And he was like, what the hell?
Yeah. And I mean, seems like we've heard about that actually really happening.
Yes.
And so it's I don't know. I don't like to speculate on things like that. I just hope I'm never in that situation. But
if you're the elite, the elite.
I would kill them all and let God sort them out. I'd figure out a way. I'd be making bows and arrows and stuff in the woods. I'd be digging holes and covering them up with leaves and.
Oh yeah, swinging punky stakes.
Real quick, we'll do this. I know we're a little late. We're waiting on that TV can pop on at any time. We're gonna and if anyone here sees that maybe ours isn't keeping up, or I'm kind of got things going on. But anyway, just let us know, and we'll get to the Trump talking a little bit. We're just waiting, but we do have JT here. Take a minute and tell everyone, about yourself, what you do, where you're from, just a minute or so. And then his channel is right down below, folks. I added it. It's the very first thing in the chat or the description. Get over there.
Cool. Yeah, I'm JT Wilde. I'm a Florida guy. I've been playing in bands for 30 years now almost. And I was my last big venture, I played with Blackfoot for a little while, sang for them for about a year and a half. When I left them, I started playing more Southern rock music, and then started a band called we were called Southern Rumble, and then all of a sudden Q came out, and Trump won the election, and I just became a patriot. I became absorbed in the movement and started writing music for it, and I wrote the song "Where We Go, When We Go All," which is already a song title. So I mean, I wrote that song about 2 years ago, and the video went a little bit viral, semi-viral, I guess. And I just found a voice in the movement, and I'm getting ready to release a CD that's called "Enjoy the Show," and it's going to be kind of a concept album with a Q, concept with a Q, for the Q movement and for everybody else. I'm also coming out with another CD that's kind of more of my mellow acoustic rock stuff. And I've just been kind of. I'm on the In the Matrix show every Friday. I've been going on different shows. I have my own show on YouTube, and I have an interview show there called The Middle Ground, where I've had Brandon Straka, I've had Joe Flynn. That's one of the things that I've been very lucky is the Flynn family. Mike Flynn started answering my messages on Twitter, and he loves the music. And next thing you know, I'm talking to one of the most amazing people on the planet. And since he's been not able to talk to people, I've become friends with his brother Joe, and we're actually making plans to get together and hang out. But just he's been very supportive of the music, and it's been really cool, really cool. And that just who's that, Mike?
That's
Yeah.
That's awesome, bro.
Yeah.
Did you go to see him at a talk or?
No.
Oh, wow. You gotta get that framed, huh?
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome, bro.
Somebody sent that to me.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know. I mean, it could have been. There's two names on that. I was trying to.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I get a frame for that. I got to get something ordered ASAP.
Yeah, man. And yeah, so I just now I'm a Twitter warrior. I'm out there on Twitter just fighting every day. I noticed that there's a lot of people like yourself. You don't. I mean, use Twitter as a way to promote the shows and stuff like that. But man, it's a war out there. So I'm kind of knee deep in the war.
I'm engaged in that for sure. I've been blocked or banned for 24.
Shadow banned.
Learned my lesson. Man, it was something that got me good. It was a star or something that put they were taking a poll to, I can't even remember. But then I had put some comments, and then it was like, you violated the policy. And I learned pretty quick. I'm pretty good at, I was involved in unions and always knowing in the military for a lot of years. So you always learn the rules. And then if you can abide by them rules, you're good to go. So typically.
Yeah. I try to do that too. I was just telling a friend the other day, I can't count how many times I've wrote out a rant and then deleted it, because you really do have to be careful, not only for breaking their rules, but also for being just a good person.
Yes.
It's really more important for us to keep our own integrity than it is for us to go and tell Hillary Clinton that she eats babies. It's some of these things are, it's just, I understand that people are getting their hate out or something, or their emotions out. But the truth is you don't really have proof. I've never really seen proof that she's done those things. I can say that I don't like her, and I can say that I don't trust her, and I can say that she was robbing us blind when she was head of the State Department, and I all of that stuff.
Enough that alone is enough to, if they were selling our country out, selling special access to the server to foreign countries to get our military. I mean, that's treason. There's enough of the real stuff or stuff that everyone can partake in and see for them to go down for lifetimes. And actually be found guilty of the treason things for federal or military crimes. So the other stuff, like you said, it's some of it's unverifiable, and in the end, it'd be choice to know that as well, possibly. But I think just the surfaceable stuff, or and I don't mean to act like it's nothing, but treason stuff is a real meat that everyone can get behind, and then some of these other things.
Benghazi, all kinds of stuff. And I will say
we can only wonder, right? I mean, for all these years, why the border wasn't tacked up, and it's like, well, because of the drug flow and the human trafficking, and then who's involved in that, and it was like, that's the picture that was really painted. It's like this is an organized mob on a scale that nobody's seen, worldwide connected, that they are I don't think Hillary was ever down there nabbing kids on her own behalf.
I will say that the fact that she visited the island herself, Jeffrey Epstein Island herself, that's really weird. And I do think that she probably was involved in some rituals, but I don't have definite proof of it, and so I'm not gonna go. I just don't like the idea of us going that far until we really know something. And
I agree.
I mean, like you said, there's enough proof of
This other
like
stuff.
what she say the other day. Where are the tests? She says she wrote. Where are the tests? I wrote. Where are the emails? How about a trade?
Nice. I like that.
I said, well, let's trade.
I got a little breaking news here. Harvey Weinstein just tested positive.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah. Interesting.
I am starting to wonder if
did his bunkie
tainted.
Did his bunkie? His bunkie didn't though. That's what's odd.
Yeah. Yeah, he's probably alone.
Yeah.
Rand Paul. How about Rand Paul?
Yeah, that's pretty nuts, huh?
Yeah.
I just heard about that today. Yeah.
I can tell you guys, like I said the other day, I really think that it's been around a lot longer than they think. This whole thing.
And didn't you say you were down in November? Or I know I got really sick in November. Like I don't get sick like every 5 years or so. Then I'll get like, ugh. And when I do, I get it pretty bad. I always say I'm like I'm down. Maybe I'm worse. Maybe I'm a baby because I go 5 years and then when I get something, I'm like, ugh. But I don't know. I was down pretty bad.
Everyone around me got sick. I didn't this time, but I got I got sick, but it wasn't from that. Well, you had a lot of vaccines when you were in the
I got all the real bad ones out right when I got out. I noticed they quit giving the anthrax. I went through a series of 18 months of shots to get the anthrax. And at the end of it all, they tell us it was only good for like 3 of the 6 known strands of anthrax. And then we're hearing these are pig intestines sitting in 55-gallon drums since the 70s. It was weird stuff. I don't know what we were truly getting, but it was a series of a lot of shots for a 6-month period, 18 of them in total. And I went through that whole series. And then when I get out, they're like, the military quit doing that. They after 2.3 million of us got it, they ceased to start. I don't know.
Woodman, what branch did you serve in?
The Army, but back during NOM days, they didn't have that crap back then. So we were busy enough doing other things, So yeah.
Didn't they give you something for Agent Orange or any of that? Didn't they have something?
I didn't go in country. I was. I did high security level stuff here in the United States, and so I didn't go over there. But they run you to the lines. They had those little air gun things. Man, they had like 12 medicines in one thing. And if you ever went across the seas or whatever, across the pond, they had to do that too. And I was in an airborne unit. We were always going somewhere. So yeah, they loaded us right up. But then that was different than what Mike's talking about. Different times, different.
The anthrax is newer, I'm sure. Like whenever they developed that crap.
Yeah,
but
different times.
Now Woodman did tell me that's how I got turned on. I don't know. Were you live the other night? Did you catch JT live, or you were just on his channel? Woodman scroll. Okay, you saw him live.
I caught him live. Great music. Yeah, great music, man. I love. He's got a great following, by the way, Mike. Very peaceful people. Now. Really impressed with that,
Oh yeah,
that shows his heart, Mike. That shows his heart.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah,
yeah. I honestly, guys, that's a great compliment, man. I just love people, and I love music, and I love freedom, and so I'm trying to be. I call it the middle ground because it's like I'm in the middle. I'm not going to take anybody's side. I'm me, and I'm just gonna. I don't know. I like to be a mediator and help people kind of work through this this conversation, man. It's a
Yes.
huge conversation, and I like to be that guy that can help you get it right in your head. And I've just the people that come on are just so just loving, and it's a really good thing, man. And that's something that we need too. Providing, I believe, a way to kind of forget about all of this stuff a little bit, but still remember it while you're listening to the music. To have a patriotic feel, but not a judgmental place where we're all choosing sides.
Yeah. I started this channel with that. I kind of the old ways of coming up to people that you might argue with at work or your coworkers or friends. Actually, we don't really argue with strangers. It's always like the friend or the family member that you argue with the most. But so it was like the old, coming up, I'm right, you're wrong, you're evil, I'm good. Now listen to me. It doesn't work. You're going to turn people away right away. Or like you said, Thanksgiving, like, hey, pass the gravy. Hillary eats babies. You're not going to get anywhere with that. You're not going to get anywhere. So it's start with the mutual. What we all know. So we know she didn't turn in emails. Oh, I'm tired of hearing about emails.
Right.
That's why I think they ran that out. It was like Hillary played so dumb, and what did you wipe that server? What you mean with like a rag? I mean, she knew you wouldn't have a server if you didn't know what the hell you were going to be doing with it. But she played really dumb and was able to play in. I mean, all these people are lawyers. We all know that, right? They're really smart people, typically. So they know words matter.
Too many lawyer in them. Way too much lawyers.
So I'm looking at headlines. What's terrible about it is made us all equal. So now Madonna posts a creepy bathtub meltdown video.
Oh, God.
She's in the bathtub.
You just said that and I got the heebie-jeebies, man.
We won't be showing that here.
looking at her face, it's like, she's like, she's got like
Oh man,
so much work done. Her face is just pulled back like a piece of leather.
Leather face.
Yeah.
Toilet paper wars.
She's a 60-year-old woman acting like she's 15.
Holy crap. Did you see this one, JT? Hold on here. So right here, toilet paper wars. Florida man and women buy entire store supply of toilet paper.
Wow. Only in Florida. Only in Florida.
Let me see if I can get this.
oh boy.
They're going to go to the flea market and mark it up twice.
I thought they're already hitting people on that. Gouging
Probably
or
are.
whatever.
Yeah,
I just heard
are.
Cuomo come on and say that masks, they found 2 million masks that they could buy, and they went from 80 cents to $4.
Wow.
These are from a European company, I guess. And he was getting ready to buy them, I guess. What's that? 2 million times 4. We got $8 million that they were going to spend on 2 million masks, but I'm thinking Trump's going to head him off at the pass and get it taken care of, because they shouldn't be able to do that, even worldwide. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Everything that's happening is leading to the fact that we have to bring all of our manufacturing back into our country. I mean, it's actually a miracle and it's a beautiful thing to see that is prevalent even in the left's mind. They're like, yeah, that's, you can't, yeah, I guess China has all the medicine. That is kind of weird, I mean, at least that thought alone is in their head.
Yes.
And you can keep going, obviously, with so many products. But yeah, we got to bring it all back.
I'm looking at a few things the last couple of days I'll share with you guys, just something to think about with all this time on our hands. So we got the military stacking up in every state. I know people are fearful just from that movement. But, then they talked about is Trump going to federalize the National Guard, which he could do? He has that right, but they're like, it wouldn't make sense because, the National Guard are all the people we truly know. I mean, there's military. Typically, somebody that goes in like Woodman or myself to the active duty branch, you're going to leave your home state and be gone for at least 4 years. If you sign up for, like, I was gone for around 10. But if you come back, the National Guard are people that live in your town and they go away for like a weekend, a month, and then they're back, and they're the people that live in your community, firefighters, police officers. I mean, they do anything, a multitude of whatever.
They get moved around a lot, but they live there.
Yes, they live there. And when you get activated, and then you're typically in your area, the area, you're so those are really our brothers and sisters and family members and community members, or typically
roommates. I had a roommate that was.
Yes, and now if they get activated, you're under the federal control. It would do the states no good. Right now, they're moving. The states are activating under whatever control, and they're and they're telling they're there to help. And I don't believe they're there to hand out toilet paper and stuff, but they're saying clean things and just help in general, but really play backwards and let law enforcement of the towns do their normal thing. My point of that is so they're not going to federalize them like people were saying. That was one fear. So this other scenario is, with all this ramping up, it truly is either over this pandemic, like the numbers don't really add up maybe, or they're underkept. That's the others. They're going to come out, the reason they're ramping up, then they're going to come out with the real numbers, or some are saying it's to round up the Patriots and all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, that's conspiracy if I ever heard one. Now I know the New World Order story, I've been following it for a long time, but people are saying that. And then the other thing is if you look at what Trump, or not Trump, my bad, Abraham Lincoln did, he actually did suspend habeas corpus. And then the reasons are cited for many. But if you look, you had states leaving. If you look at that era, when you had states threatening to leave and succeed, which they did. I think we had Virginia do it. California was threatening. But you had chaos going on in the country with not people, but other elected officials. I've actually dug into that over the last year and really found it interesting how much it adds, how it kind of seems like today. When Trump was winning, he was like, California, we're going to leave. Like people that didn't like him, people threatening to leave the country, and then you had states threatening to leave the damn union. And some people say that's the right way, man, because the federal government is too overpowering and controlling. There's a whole mess of that if you go back in the history of time. I really do believe when Abraham Lincoln lifted habeas corpus and then was able to do things, then he got killed. And it wasn't supposed to be open as long as it was. That's where the other dupes comes in. That's where when they finally unlifted that, the federal government had done their own damn constitution that kind of put ours on the dustbin, and then theirs was enacted. So we went in under Abraham Lincoln, and he said he was going to shut it down quickly, but I think they killed him, and then it never got shut down. And then these other people there left it open for a period of like 10 years, kind of like, and wrote up their own constitution, which is now what we have. That's what all the acts are like. They're not really laws. It's like if you USC code, the USC codes, and all the stuff out of DC. It's all, that's what they came out with, and it kind of usurps ours in ways. So we've always hold on. My First Amendment, my second, and it's all we have. But they kind of, I think, snicker and laugh because at any point they can just kind of override you. And that's the issue that it's a pretty nasty problem, honestly. So I don't know if that's, I've looked into enough to see Trump making moves towards these things and things he's said, and give the country back to you, the people. So I just don't know the extent. Now, that by the real quickly, it talks about the insurrection talks about if your country's being invaded. So now we have to determine, is our country been invaded by terrorists or illegals? They could use this to get rid of all the illegals, literally round them up, people that aren't supposed to be in our country. Is 20 million people an invasion? Well, did they come by gunfire, storming the border with gun and flag in hand? That's what we always typically think in our head, that you have to do it that way. The movies show you people marching towards your border, and they have a flag on their shoulder, and they're invading. But does it have to happen that way? I don't know. I'm just trying to put things together like anyone else, man.
Did you see the bus driver in New York City that she saw like a whole row of black suburban, trucks, and there was military all inside of them, and
Okay,
she
like
went.
I've seen plenty of the train. People stopped at trains, and they're like, "Oh my god, where are these going?"
Well,
Yes, but
I think a lot of those are from old footage because
some are, yeah.
yeah, but this was like this lady jumps on Instagram. She's like, "Oh my God, I just saw," and they said they were going around to other counties too. So, but
So
that
like black Suburbans or van,
yeah,
okay, like
yeah,
the
see,
Fed, and
yeah, well, or yeah, Q team, or like, or, but
so where was
you
this?
never,
Say this again. New York, a
yeah,
cab
New
was it a
York.
cab lady
She
or
was a bus driver,
bus
a
driver?
city bus driver, and she was literally sitting in the bus and like Instagramming or whatever, live feeding, and she's like, "I saw this," and she went up and talked to him even, and it was interesting because um, if they were in those kinds of vehicles, I mean, those are usually for arrests. Those types
Yeah,
of vehicles, they're not really to go. Do anything other than that, really. So, um, and why would we have all those? I mean, it's the indictments, the sealed indictments are real.
yeah.
It's like, why would we have all those if somebody's not getting arrested? I mean, the if you say we have 20 million illegals, and there's only what? How many indictments sealed are there now? Is it is it up to 300,000
I
or is
think
it
the
in
last I saw
100?
was 157, like 157.
Yeah.
And here's something
So
else,
that
everyone, and it doesn't have to be one indictment per person. That's something that came to me early on. I was like,
oh
you
yeah,
can have one person with 30 indictments, or
that's true.
Right. Right.
I mean, that's right. I mean, sometimes they'll let things go. Like we had 18 charges, we only end up charging them with 12 or something, But that's what people don't get. It's like they let Rosenstein go, and it's like, well, that was an early charge that like almost a lawyer that would be in connection with Rosenstein would try to get at him real quick early on to like, look, come on, let's bring up some charges over here, because they knew these other things existed, and tried to get him to go down for those or something less early on. And I was like, no, we're not worried about that. You leaking a little something. I mean,
Right, the leaks. Yeah.
that'll get you 6 months. We got these other ones over here that are, 80 years. So folks, I don't know we're not designed to know we couldn't, there's no possible way.
Well, it gives them a chance to play with those charges. Like, hey, we got 18 on you. You go ahead and say you're committed to 12 of them, and we'll overlook the rest of them. That's the main thing, I believe. Truly, they come up with all that kinds of crap first, and then like, well, we're gonna go ahead and like we'll drop these if you say a little bit about this, and if you say more, we'll drop a little bit more off. I mean, it's a quid pro quo.
Quid pro Joe.
Yeah, legally. My
Well,
opinion only.
I'll say, like,
Follow the
so
money.
a couple of interesting things of my time in the Navy. I was on the USS George Washington. There might be people here today watching that were on that ship with me. And three big things if they were on the exact same time as me. I got in 97. So this whole plan supposedly started in 99. And we talk about JFK Jr.'s plane going down. So we were involved in that. I think we looked for a period of 12 or 13 hours. My ship, 6,000 of us, we launched things. We until other crew got on site and Coast Guard, and then they took over and we went about our business. But see, that's the thing with a Navy ship. You're a 911 is what you basically are for any casualty. So you'll respond to anything. So the other thing was, so we were part of JFK Jr.'s plane wreck looking. 9/11, we got called to. We were there the next morning for the next 2 weeks. We sat out in Coney Island Harbor, watched that smoke burn, and we turned our hangar bays into a medical facility, kind of like they're talking about now. Oh, we're bringing ships in to provide nurse or barges in to grab people up and help them get better. But they never found any bodies. I mean, them buildings came down. You guys know the story. There was no, they didn't find any remains for a long time, if any. So then, anyway, so we'll back it up to the JFK thing. They didn't find any bodies, you guys. That's
For
the whole
JFK?
thing. Yeah.
They never found their body?
All the divers that were, I wish if I can find this, the whole.
Well, look,
I have
now,
a video.
I know
I'm going to send you a video I did, JT. And you don't have to, watch it if you want in full, but at least the last 5 minutes of this video. And so I got two of the first one I released, and it goes into my time in the beginning of it because I was sentimental that day, but I talk about my channel. I was happy that the channel had just reached 100,000. So I said, this is one of the awesomest times of my life as well, this channel. But other than that, so then I get into JFK, then I get into Trump, and then that was the end of that video, 100,000 views. Well, then 8 months later, I come across this new bit of information. So I took that same old video, brought it back to life, and then at the very end, I add this. Now that video only got 10,000 views because of the banning going on from one point to the other. So that one, honestly, I don't know if a lot of people have seen it or if they started like, I already seen this one. He just brought it back out. I'll do that sometimes. Like you said, if it's a good enough video, I feel it's prevalent now. I made it then. Now it's time to talk about it again. But maybe I should bring that back out. But I'll send it to you
Cool.
in your phone or whatever. And just check that out towards the end. There was like 7 people at the funeral on the ship that they did it, There was only 17 people that came in 99 to the where we buried them at sea. There's a lot of things that actually it's pretty.
Did you see
all the pilots or all the divers got restationed? Nobody knows. The tapes are missing. Oh, come on, man. I mean, I don't know.
Wow.
So, anyway, we'll talk more on that.
Well, look, I know a lot of pilots that before they even fly, especially these type of aircraft, before they fly, they walk over the whole entire aircraft to make sure everything is going to work properly. Because when you're in the air, it's not like driving a car where you can pull off the side of the road to get it fixed. When you're in the air, if you have a problem, it could be deadly. So, they check those planes out tremendously. And I'm sure as I'm sitting here, he's seen that or caught wind of what was going on and somehow made some other arrangements. I don't know. But I'm not going to swallow that about, like he blew up in the air and he was that ignorant to go ahead and try and fly an aircraft that he didn't look over, like JT, when you play music, you check your equipment, you tune your guitar and all that stuff before you play.
Yeah,
Think
definitely.
about it.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. We hear you.
Okay, cool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Did you see the new iPod video? The new In Pursuit of Truth video?
iPod. I thought you said iPod. I'm like, what the hell? No,
iPod.
I haven't seen that one yet. No, I haven't seen. I do watch.
Oh, you got to see it because he said he took the graphic that was on the video that Q posted yesterday, and he found a link somehow or embedded in it.
Oh, okay. No. I got that video out early this morning too. At the end of my one video, I said there's a new Q post, and within that there was and I don't know where I came across that at. I think it was just on Twitter. I don't know if it was I'm not taking credit away if he found it, but I just saw somebody else had said that because we've done this before. Q's dropped a video link, and it was just a solid cover, folks. All right, so what JT's explaining here is there's like a solid cover of like an angel just standing there on the cover of this YouTube video, but in the right corner there was like a embedded, like do you know what it said? I can't remember. Like warrior something.
Yeah, I can't.
But it's something like that. Warrior.
Well,
truth.
they got this link, and but it led to. It's called Dark Legacy
2.
2. Yeah, that's the name of the. And then there was a trailer, and then the movie, I guess, is you can watch the full movie. But it's interesting.
JFK.
It was going into some of those things about like that there was actually an instructor. He never went without an instructor flying, I guess, and it goes into some of the stuff that you guys have probably been studying. So
Yeah, no, I agree with some of that. And then the guy that called in, I'm telling you, if this, and I like a good conspiracy like anyone else, and I haven't wrapped my mind around this one too much because we've been busy with other real things. So I always take that to be, yeah, I'll dig into it on my spare time, like a hobby, because anyone can have a hobby. But no, it's cool, and there's a lot of weird coincidences. I mean, the guy that calls in the day that his plane went down back in '99, his voice, he calls in, he's like, I'm in the Coast Guard, and then it's the same voice that's called into multiple shows, like our shows and stuff, to people, and there's videos that come out with the same voice. So this guy's been around from day one, and this voice, I haven't even brought that to my channel, some of the other channels. But he's even called in like Phil McConnell's show. The same voice that calls into that show is called into this show. It was the guy that called into the press back in '99 and said that his name was this, and he was in the Coast Guard. But yet you look up records, you can't find any man by that name serving in the Coast Guard.
Here's the man. Hey, you guys, I'm gonna check out. I gotta go get ready for tonight.
Everyone check in with JT tonight, 9 p.m.
Very hard.
All right, love you guys. Peace out.
See you soon, brother.
Getting a young group of people out of Peru. We've removed some, and the rest are being removed with the cooperation of the Peruvian government. And we're also dealing with Honduras on getting some people out that got caught up, and we are working on that very well, again, with the Honduran government's work, and they're working with us, so I appreciate that. We have a couple of other locations that we'll report to you, and we were able to get a young woman released from a certain area who was being horribly accosted, horribly treated, and we spoke to General Milley. General Milley took care of it. We went in, and we got her out, and we'll report further on that one, but it's that was rough stuff. I want to thank General Milley. I want to thank all of the people that were involved and the people that went in to get her. I want to thank you very much. As we continue to marshal every resource at America's disposal in the fight against the Chinese virus, we're profoundly grateful to our nation's state and local leaders, doctors, nurses, law enforcement, and first responders who are waging this battle on the ground. It is absolutely critical that Americans continue to follow the federal government's guidelines, so important, about social distancing, non-essential travel, and hand washing. Defeating this unseen enemy requires the help and commitment of every single American. I want to just say that Senator Rand Paul, a friend of mine, he's been a great friend of mine. He's been always there when we needed him, when the country needed him. And as you know, he just tested positive. Jose Diaz-Balart, spoke to him yesterday, tested positive. And some people are, they're getting quite close to home. And it's a terrible thing that's going on. The hidden enemy, I call it the hidden enemy. And I think they'll all be fine. I hope they're going to be fine. But I just want to send our regards, and I think I can speak on behalf of our country, to those two great friends of mine. We're working urgently with Congress on legislation to support the millions of workers, small businesses, and industries who have been hit hard by the virus through no fault of their own. Our goal is to get relief to Americans as quickly as possible so that families can get by and small businesses can keep workers on the payroll. This will help our economy, and you will see our economy skyrocket once this is over. I think it's going to skyrocket. It's a pent-up demand. It's a built-up demand, and I guess you really have to say who knows, but I think it's going to be a tremendous day when we win this war, and we will win the war. We want to win the war with as few if you look at it, just deaths as possible. We want to have as few number of deaths as possible. Today I'm announcing action to help New York, California, and Washington ensure that the National Guard can effectively respond to this crisis. The National Guard, these are tremendous people. They're fully on alert. We've signed what we had to sign, and it's been activated. We're dealing also with other states. These states have been hit the hardest. Actually, pretty much by far, you could say the hardest. Everybody can see that. Just look at the numbers. And through FEMA, the federal government will be funding 100% of the cost of deploying National Guard units to carry out approved missions to stop the virus while those governors remain in command. So the governors locally are going to be in command, and will be following them, and we hope they can do the job, and I think they will. I spoke with all three of the governors today and just a little while ago, and they're very happy with what we're going to be doing, because we'll be announcing some other things for those three states and some other states where it's hit the hardest. This action will give them maximum flexibility to use the Guard against the virus without having to worry about costs or liability, and freeing up state resources to protect the health and safety of the people in their state. The federal government has deployed hundreds of tons of supplies from our national stockpile to locations with the greatest need. In order to assist in those areas, I approved the state of New York's request for a major disaster declaration, something which Governor Cuomo has been asking for, and which I agree, and we had it done in very rapid fashion. We approved this on Friday evening, and we are working very, very hard to get all of these things not only signed up, but completed and finished and in win. The request from the state of Washington for a major disaster declaration was approved just a little while ago. Went through the process, and we moved it very quickly. The request from the state of California was just received, and we will have it approved very quickly. We'll be working, I told that to Gavin Newsom, and we're working on getting that done very quickly. It'll be done maybe tonight. We have large quantities of medical equipment and supplies on the way based on all of this to those states, including respirators, surgical masks and gowns, face shields, coveralls, and gloves, with large quantities already delivered to Washington and to New York. In addition to large quantities of supplies, I've also directed FEMA to supply the following: 4 large federal medical stations with 1,000 beds for New York, 8 large federal medical stations with 2,000 beds for California, and 3 large federal medical stations and 4 small federal medical stations with 1,000 beds for the state of Washington. The governors know. The supplies en route to California and New York will be delivered within the next 48 hours. In addition, the naval hospital ship, the USNS Mercy. It's incredible ships. These 2 ships are incredible, one on the West Coast, one on the East Coast, will be deployed to Los Angeles to add emergency surge medical capacity, and they have a tremendous capacity. They are really something. I will say that if you look at some of the things we've been doing, and now those numbers have gone up, and just to be a little bit more exacting, we've done a presidential approval for requests for major disaster declaration for the state of New York, approval of Title 32 National Guard activation for the state of New York. We're providing all of this at no cost to the governor. I spoke with Governor Cuomo. He's working hard. We're all working hard together. The relationship has really been amazing. But it also enables the governor to provide robust National Guard support to the state. And the 25%, we're going to be waiving that 25% cost. We're picking up, we'll be coordinating, and they'll be doing something with very special people. Mission assignment of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to provide support to build out alternate care sites. They're doing various alternate care sites, which have now been designated by New York. 4 large federal medical stations of 1,000 beds. These are very complex places, actually, with great equipment and great people. Strategic National Stockpile Order, and this is as of a number of days ago, so far delivered to New York, and this is the 19th. We had the N95 respirators, 186,416 delivered. We've delivered 444,078 surgical masks. Many have been delivered since then. Face shields, we've delivered 84,560 face shields. Surgical gowns, 68,944 to New York. Coveralls, 352. Gloves, 245,486. Also to New York, in terms of what's been delivered just since then, the numbers are quite large, and we have tremendous numbers of companies also making equipment. For the state of Washington, we've delivered 369,000 N95 respirators, 507,406 surgical masks. And this is as of about 3 days ago. Face shields, 63,788 face shields. Surgical gowns, 107,850. Gloves, 240,376. And we have many, many things pending. It's actually not pending. They're being fabricated. They're being made, and they're moving. Now for Washington, so we have 4 small federal medical stations, 250 beds, and for Washington, state of Washington, we have 3 large federal medical stations, 750 beds, and then you have, as I said, the approval of the Title 32 National Guard. State of California, again, to be very precise, we're going to have the approval of the Title 32 National Guard activation. And we're providing all of this, again, like in New York, at no cost to the governor, meaning to Governor Newsom and the state, no cost to the state. It enables the governor to provide robust National Guard support to the state. So they're going to have control of the National Guard. Federal government sending, these are incredible people that are being sent. We have 8 large federal medical stations with over 2,000 beds, and that's going to California. And then Strategic National Stockpile Order. We've ordered likewise hundreds of thousands of different items. I won't go into the exact numbers, but the numbers are very substantial. But we're having tremendous additional numbers sent. And whatever the states can get, they should be getting. I say we're sort of a backup for the states. And some of the states are doing really well, and some don't do as well. The ones that don't do as well need more help. But these are 3 states that really do need help because they are hit very hard. And the outpouring from the private sector has also been extraordinary. I'm pleased to report that Honeywell, great company, has just announced it will immediately expand its personal protective equipment manufacturing operations in Rhode Island to produce millions of additional N95 masks. They're very hard to get. They're actually quite complex. For the U.S. government's Strategic National Stockpile, they'll be immediately then delivered to the various states. This expansion is already underway, and it's going to provide a lot of jobs for that state, probably around 500. The masks will be distributed by the government for the use of the health, safety, and emergency, and this for response workers, primarily for response workers. These are very high-end. This expansion is in addition to Honeywell's action to more than double production of its existing personal protective equipment manufacturing plants. They make a lot of different things, and they're doubling and tripling their production. They're going round the clock. Today, I'm also announcing the launch of a new public-private consortium organized by the White House, the Department of Energy, and IBM to unleash the power of American supercomputing resources to fight the Chinese virus. The following leaders from private industries, academia, and government will be contributing. And They're going to be contributing a lot of different things, but primarily computing resources to help researchers discover new treatments and vaccines. They'll be working along with NIH and all of the people that are working on this. But tremendous help from IBM, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, MIT, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, the Department of Energy's National Labor Laboratories, the National Science Foundation, and NASA. They're all contributing to this effort, and they're fully in gear. This afternoon, I also want to update you on the steps we're taking to protect and serve our country's 18 million veterans. These are great people. Our amazing veterans have shown their eternal loyalty to our nation, and this is the time where they're in need, and we are going to show our loyalty to them. We're being very protective of our veterans. We're working on certain hospitals where we may be doing some work in Louisiana in particular and some other states, veterans hospitals. We're going to be very protective of our veterans. Some of them are of that very vulnerable age, and some of them obviously are not feeling well, and some of them are still suffering the wounds of war from many years ago. Yesterday, I signed vital legislation to ensure that the GI Bill will cover distance learning during this emergency. I also spoke with many of our veteran service organizations, or the VSOs, to describe our unprecedented action. In February, the Department of Veterans Affairs established 19 emergency operation centers throughout the country. One of the things that they've been trying to get done for many years, you all know this from following me over the last number of years, but we got it done pretty quickly. They've been trying to get it done for many, many decades, was choice, veterans' choice, and also veterans' accountability. Now, if it's crowded within this, if they can't get to a doctor, we have great doctors in the VA. I have to say that. We have fantastic doctors, as good as they come. But it's hard to get to them because of what was bureaucracy, but no longer bureaucracy. We've done a lot of things in that case because of accountability. When people aren't doing their jobs, or if they're bad, or if they're sadistic, or if they steal, or anything bad happens, we're now allowed to fire them for, I signed that a year and a half ago. For many years, you weren't able to do that. So the VA is working, and I was just told by our great leader at the VA, Robert Wilkie, he said for the first time, we get the highest marks in the history, highest poll numbers in the history of the Veterans Administration. Came out a week ago that they're happy. And look, one of the reasons that happened, highest in history, one of the reasons that happened is because of veterans' choice. If they have to wait online, they go and see a private doctor and we pay the bill. And they get better. They don't have to wait 2 weeks and 3 weeks or 2 days, but they get better. And a lot of times they waited so long that they would have a problem, and it would end up being terminal because they couldn't get the kind of treatment that they deserve. So highest poll numbers, highest approval numbers in the history of the VA. I was just given that information yesterday. We restricted visitors' access to 135 veteran community living centers, which house nearly 8,000 veterans with chronic medical conditions, so that we limit their exposure to the virus. We want to totally take care of our veterans, and that's what we're doing. The VA has canceled most elective medical and surgical procedures. They're delaying them till after this is gone, after we've won. We began providing life-saving care to patients who had symptoms across the 171 VA medical centers nationwide. That's a big deal. Under my administration, the VA has also been a leader in expanding telehealth. Telehealth is becoming a bigger and bigger factor in medicine. This month, we have taken bold action to cut through the red tape and make telehealth available for millions more Americans during this crisis. They can speak to a doctor from the safety of their home rather than risk becoming infected or making a tremendously long trip, when, frankly, you'll speak to a great doctor right from your home. It's happening, telehealth. We're very much at the forefront of that, too. We're very proud of it. And it also takes a big burden off our system. We continue to accelerate the development of safe and effective vaccines. We're also aggressively investigating a number of antiviral therapies and treatments to determine their potential in reducing the severity and duration of the symptoms. And you know how I feel, because how I feel is on Tuesday, they're going to be starting it on Tuesday morning. And we're going to have some medications delivered that we're going to see if they work. They certainly are effective in other ways, and they are safe from the standpoint is that they're not killing people. We're not going to have that. So a lot of great things have been happening in that regard. I just want to finish, and then we're going to ask a couple of people to say a few words that have been so much in the forefront of this incredible job that we've all been given. But I want to say that I know that this is a challenging time for all Americans. We're enduring a great national trial, and we will prove that we can meet the moment. I want to assure the American people that we're doing everything we can each day to confront and ultimately defeat this horrible, invisible enemy. We're at war. In a true sense, we're at war, and we're fighting an invisible enemy. Think of that. For those of you who are feeling alone and isolated, I want you to know that we are all joined together as one people, eternally linked by our shared national spirit. We love our country, a spirit of courage and love and patriotism. No American is alone as long as we are united, and we are united. We're very united. People are saying things now that 3 weeks ago, they didn't talk that way. We're very united. No force is equal to the strength of really a unified America, united America, an America like we have it right now. For those worried and afraid, please know as long as I am your president, you can feel confident that you have a leader who will always fight for you, and I will not stop until we win. This will be a great victory. This is going to be a victory. And it's going to be a victory that, in my opinion, will happen much sooner than originally expected. It's now attacking, the enemy is attacking 144 countries at this moment. 144, that's unthinkable. There's never been anything like this. And it's vicious. It is vicious. Some people recover well, and some people have a hard time. We all know that. But we will be totally victorious. We will then get our economy up to a level that it was, and in my opinion, beyond, because that will be a pent-up demand. There is a pent-up demand, and a lot of great things will happen. But I'm very proud of our country. I'm very proud. I'm very proud to be your president, and it's just something that's just, you're very special people. So thank you very, very much. And I'm going to ask, if I might, a combination of Pete. Why don't you start off? Okay, please.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Just a little bit about what we're doing in Washington, California, and New York. We understand that the states of Washington, New York, and California are the areas seeing a steady increase in COVID-19 virus cases. In order to assist with additional needs identified in those areas, the state of New York was approved for a major disaster and declaration this morning. Washington State was also approved earlier today. California submitted their request, and the President will consider it immediately. We have medical supplies en route to these states, including respirators, surgical masks, gowns, face shield, coveralls, gloves, with quantities already delivered to both Washington, New York, and California. And we anticipate additional supplies to be delivered within the next 42 hours to all these states. Under President Trump's unprecedented national emergency declaration on March 13, FEMA is assisting state, local, tribal, and territorial governments, including reimbursing eligible emergency protective measures taken at the direction or guidance of public health officials in response to this emergency. All 50 states, the District of Columbia, 5 territories, and 2 tribes are working directly with FEMA under the nationwide emergency declaration for COVID-19. With the assistance of the FEMA regional administrators who are throughout the country, we are working to address the needs of state and local officials everywhere. States, tribal, and territorial governments do not need to request separate emergency declarations to receive FEMA assistance under this nationwide declaration. The emergency declaration does not authorize direct financial assistance available to individuals such as disaster unemployment assistance or other needs assistance at this time. Just a note on the USNS Mercy. Based on analysis of potential needs for hospital beds on the West Coast, the decision was made that the USNS hospital ship Mercy would have the greatest impact in California. The Department of Defense has been given direction to dispatch it to Los Angeles immediately. DoD has advised that the Mercy can get into position within a week or less of today's order. Even though there are more cases right now in Washington, the projected needs for beds in California is 5 times more that of Washington. The Mercy will be used to take pressure off local hospitals, other medical needs, and not for treating COVID-19 cases. And finally, a little bit about the National Guard. The federal government continues to take aggressive action and proactive steps to address the COVID-19 threat as we attack the health and safety, or protect the health and safety of the American people. It remains our top priority. The National Guard is especially posted and equipped to assist federal, state, local agencies while serving the public. In response to this unprecedented nationwide operation, President Trump has approved Washington, California, and New York National Guard units under Title 32 status for the COVID-19 response. The President's action provide the nation's governors continued command of their National Guard forces, enabling states to use additional resources to meet the missions necessary in the COVID-19 response. The National Guard is a viable and responsive avenue to provide a much-needed asset that is state-managed and federally supported. And I want to be clear, this Title 32 activation does not federalize National Guard members. The National Guard is still under the authority of each governor. They will work in concert with the Department of Defense. And we've had a lot of disinformation circling, and I want to make sure it is understood that this is not martial law. The Department of Defense, by way of a mission assignment, will lead this task. And then finally, we continue to respond to hundreds of requests from governors across the country in filling all their critical needs. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Pete, very much. Peter Navarro?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening. What I want to talk briefly about is the Defense Production Act. And to give you the overview here, using the full power of private enterprise and the full force of the federal government, my job at the White House is to make sure tactically, working with FEMA and HHS, the American people, particularly our healthcare professionals, get the gloves, the masks, and all of the personal protective equipment they need. And I can tell you, sir, that since you signed the Defense Production Act, my job's gotten easier. And let me explain why. The Defense Production Act, in this context, has 2 primary functions. One is mobilization of the industrial base, in this case, the public health industrial base, and the other is allocation of resources, both from the supply chain to the manufacturers and from the manufacturers to the end users, such as the healthcare professionals. Now, what we're seeing on a purely voluntary basis, based on the leadership of this administration, we're seeing the greatest mobilization of the industrial base since World War II. And every day I'm working with organizations and companies, National Association of Manufacturing, the National Council of Textile Organizations, and so on, in terms of building up rapidly our capabilities to get what you need. Now, let's think about what mobilization means. It can mean, for example, repurposing a factory. So Pernod Ricard called us last week, and they had 3 hurdles they had to deal with. They called my office, had to make a call to Treasury, FDA, and HHS to clear the path. We got that done that day. They started their production that day, moving from alcoholic beverages to hand sanitizers, and as we speak, a truck is moving towards New York and will arrive there Tuesday to share with the hospitals over 1,000 gallons of sanitizer. So that would be a repurpose. A second example would be one that the President offered with Honeywell. Again, Honeywell called the White House asking for help from the President And what they said is, look, we want to do this new factory in Smithfield, Rhode Island. They called me on a Friday morning. And by that night, we had a contract in to HHS. HHS flipped that immediately, and I had Honeywell moving people and equipment from Massachusetts to that facility in Smithfield, Rhode Island, and we're going to have those masks produced within 30 days, moving on the assembly chain. So my point is, mobilization is repurposing, building up capabilities. And the other portion is, of course, the allocation of resources. Now, what I can tell you so far is that the Defense Production Act, sir, has given me quiet leverage. When you have a strong leader, you can take a light hand initially. And so what we've seen with this outpouring of volunteers from private enterprise, we're getting what we need without putting the heavy hand of government down. There will be possibly cases down the road, and the manufacturers have actually asked me and alerted me to this, where some places in the supply chain, they may have problems that the White House will have to break through using the Defense Production Act. We won't hesitate to do that. The last thing I'll tell you is that I also get a lot of calls that are very disquieting. Brokers are offering millions of items, whether they're goggles, masks, or whatever, and you go through 3 different brokers, tracing to a warehouse in LA that's allegedly got 10 million masks, and they want to charge you 7 times what they cost. That's price gouging. We are a message to the hoarders: if you got any large quantities of material that this country needs right now, get them to market or get them to us. We'll pay you a fair price. But if you don't do that, we're going to come for you and make sure that doesn't happen in this country, and that would be a good use of the Defense Production Act. So I salute you, sir. You've made my job easier, and I appreciate that.
Thank you, Peter, very much.
Great job.
Mike, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. The task force met this afternoon, as we do every day. And let me begin today by simply saying thank you to the American people. And thank you for the way that people across this country, 7 days into 15 days to slow the spread, that people in communities large and small across America are responding, are cooperating, are communicating, not just on behalf of their own health and the health of their family, but more importantly on behalf of the most vulnerable among us. So on behalf of your president, and our entire task force, just thank you to the American people. I also want to express our appreciation to the governors across the country. President today just announced action in New York, California, and Washington State as the latest demonstration that this administration will do whatever it takes to support the leadership at the state and local level as the American people confront the spread of the coronavirus. The legislative efforts that are underway being negotiated on Capitol Hill as we speak, the bipartisan spirit that's taking place there, that's reflected in all of our interactions with state leaders around the country, is a great credit to the nation. But it should be a great encouragement to the American people that your government at the federal level, at the state level, working with courageous healthcare providers all across America, are coming together to meet this moment. And that is the way our system works. It's extremely important that the American people recognize that one of the things that makes America different is that we have a system of federalism, and that by putting FEMA in the lead, the president has emphasized that our response to the coronavirus is in the anthem of FEMA, it is locally executed, state managed, and federally supported. We want the people on the ground, the decision makers, to have what they need. We want states to be able to manage the unique circumstances in their states. And whether it be the legislation moving through the Congress or the efforts the President announced today, major disaster declarations, Title 32 on the National Guard, resources flowing, hospital beds flowing, we're going to continue to make sure that our states have what they need to meet this moment. Our task force continues to focus on the priorities the President's given us. They are testing, mitigation, and supplies. And on the subject of testing, as is evident to people across the country, testing is more and more available every single day. We'll be detailing tomorrow from this podium the progress that we are making on tests.
At this day's reporting, 254,000 Americans have been tested and received results in coronavirus tests, with slightly more than 30,000 actually testing positive. There's a bit of an encouraging word in that for every American. Remember, everyone that's being tested now, with the exception of our healthcare workers, are people that have symptoms that make them think they may have the coronavirus. And as our numbers come in consistently, because the 254,000 does not include all the local hospitals or all the local labs in our states, it's working out to be about 1 in 10 Americans who've been tested who thought they had coronavirus actually had it. 9 out of 10 did not. But we'll continue to roll out the testing to provide that resource to the American people. And we're working to make testing happen faster. We expect from word from the commercial labs that we should be caught up on the backlog in testing by the middle of the week. And we are urging today, on the President's behalf, that all labs would prioritize inpatient testing. Let me say again, to all of the commercial labs in the country, you will receive guidance from HHS tomorrow. But on behalf of the President and the White House Coronavirus Task Force, we are urging all commercial labs to prioritize inpatient testing. We want people that have been checked into a hospital that are being treated for what they suspect to be coronavirus to receive those tests more quickly. Also, I'm pleased to report that yesterday the FDA approved an emergency authorization on a new test that should be in production by the end of March. It actually would be a coronavirus test, the results of which come back in 45 minutes. And we're also working, the FDA is working with manufacturers around the country to come up with even faster, more innovative tests. And as we told our governors in several calls this week, governors and state health officials should simply contact FEMA for the latest information on testing solutions. Let me also say, tomorrow when we gather at this podium, we'll be unveiling, with Dr. Bob Redfield in the lead, new guidance for people that work in law enforcement, first responders, people that work in what we call critical infrastructure in the country. It was in early March the CDC issued guidance for people that were asymptomatic or did not have symptoms, but who had been exposed to someone with coronavirus. We gave them guidance about being able to return to work wearing a mask for 14 days. And tomorrow at this podium, CDC will unveil, in cooperation with the Department of Homeland Security, new guidance which will make it possible for people that have been exposed to return to work more quickly by wearing a mask for a certain period of time. Let me also amplify a point on behalf of the President and on behalf of the State Department about Americans abroad. You know, one of the reasons why the United States is in a different position today than portions of Europe are, and China and elsewhere, is because the President suspended all travel from China. He suspended travel from Europe and the UK and Ireland. But the State Department is working around the clock to assist Americans who may find themselves overseas. They're able to come home. There's no barrier to Americans coming back to American soil. They're screened when they come home through a series of airports. But we're aware that with flights being canceled, some Americans have found themselves unable to find a way home. And as the President said, we've been working very diligently through the State Department to make it possible. Their commercial flights have been chartered. We're also working with the military for a backup on flights. At this point, the State Department has brought more than 3,000 Americans back home. But speaking to the Secretary of State today, he wanted me to share a website and a phone number for any American that might be looking on from overseas. You can call the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program at 1-888-407-4747. Or you can go online at step.state.gov. This will allow our embassies and consulates to gather important information about your situation and work to facilitate to bring you home. Let me say finally, as I began, let me close. As the chairman or the leader of this White House Coronavirus Task Force, we are 7 days into 15 days, and the American people are responding. Because as we speak about supplies, as we speak about testing, the most important thing every American can do is heed the guidance and the direction from your state and local officials, particularly in areas where we have widespread coronavirus infections. But for every American putting into practice these measures that the President alluded to at the very beginning of his remarks is a way that we can do this, America. We can lessen the magnitude of the coronavirus in our country with the cooperation, compassion, generosity, and prayers of the American people. We can slow the spread, we can protect the most vulnerable, and we can heal our land. So let's do it, America.
Thank you, Mike, very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mike. So just a couple of little things that will take some questions. Maybe you will have some, maybe you won't. That'll be a shock. It will shock the American public. But I have to say on the testing, if this works out, and we think it might, the new test will be a very simple one, much easier than the existing test, which is quite complex and not a lot of fun to take. And this will be a game changer. But remember, we inherited a broken, obsolete system. It was good for a small number of people, but not good for the millions of people that we're talking about. And we've made this into a system that no matter where you go in the world, that's where they're going. That's what they want to do. That's how they're going to be doing it should something like this happen again. So our people have done a fantastic job, really a fantastic job. And I hope the new test works out. We'll know fairly soon, I think, Doctor. We're going to be knowing about that fairly soon. Hopefully it'll check out or test out. And we certainly are looking forward to that. That will be a very simple test by comparison. Won't be unpleasant at all. And one other thing, the ships. So we have the Mercy, and it's going to California, as you know. That's on the West Coast now. And you have a sister ship that's essentially a twin. They're incredible. I mean, they're incredible ships. I've seen it. I've seen one of them, and they are unbelievable what they can do and the capacity. Many operating rooms, you know, they're wartime ships. They're meant for war. Many operating rooms, stainless steel. These rooms are as good as there is anywhere in the nation, actually. I spoke with Governor Cuomo. We had a great conversation today, a number of conversations, actually. He's working very hard. And we are going to be bringing that ship, that's called the Comfort. So you have the Mercy and the Comfort. The Comfort's on the East Coast. And that ship will be coming over the next 3 or 4 weeks. It was in the middle of maintenance, and we are moving the maintenance very quickly, and we're also supplying the ship simultaneously. It's actually big supplies going into those ships, big. And that ship will be coming up here over the next few weeks, and we'll probably be putting it in New York Harbor. And we're making arrangements for that also as to where it's going to be docked. So you have the Mercy and you have the Comfort. They'll be coming up. The Mercy will start very quickly. It'll be arriving in Los Angeles pretty soon. So we look forward to that. A question? ABC.
Thank you. First of all, Senator Paul testing positive. When's the last time you had in-person contact with him?
Gee, I think it was quite a while ago. I don't
But
know.
also,
It's been a long time.
On top of Senator Paul, now 4 senators are in isolation, and the rules say that in order to vote, they have
Who
to
are
be
they,
there.
please? Who are they?
Romney, Senator Lee,
Senator Gardner,
Senator Gardner,
Senator
and
Rick Scott.
Senator Rick Scott. Also, 2 of them were in contact
I
with.
guess Rick is
with
coming
Rand
out.
Paul. With the critical stimulus package vote expected.
Romney's in isolation?
Yes.
Yes.
Gee, that's too bad. Go ahead.
Detect sarcasm there,
No,
sir?
none whatsoever.
Do you think that Congress should consider changing the rules to allow them to vote remotely if it comes to this critical stimulus
I
package?
was thinking about it today, and I'm saying, you know, you could have a lot of senators and a lot of House members. I spoke last night with a very good man who happens to be in the House, as you know, and he's just started, and he tested positive. So you could have a large number of people in there from Congress. You could have, between House and Senate, you could have a large number. And I think it's something, at least, I mean, I fully understand why you should be there. I think it may be a constitutional reason why you should, but we could be in a position where I would certainly be in favor of it, where they could vote from a certain outside location. I would be in favor of it. I was thinking about it today. I mean, we could be in this, look, with what's going on, nobody's ever seen anything like this. You could have a lot of people in there from Congress. And it would certainly be, they may tell me there's a reason constitutionally, and there may be, but I would be totally in favor of it on a temporary basis.
It does seem like negotiations still have a ways to go in the stimulus package. Are you concerned about the timing at all in the
Well,
message?
we have an interesting thing. You know, we all want to get to the same place, but we have different. We want to, and I just wrote this down just a little while ago. We want to protect the worker very much. So do they. So do the Democrats. We also want to protect the worker through their companies. We don't want to necessarily. We're going to help the worker anyway. But ideally, they can go back to one of their great companies. You know, you have great companies that are in financial trouble now, and we need money to help those companies so they get back into where they should be, health. You know, most of these companies 4 weeks ago were having the best year they've ever had. Last year was the best year, almost all of them, other than Boeing, which is incredibly had problems, big percentage of GDP. But we have to be able to work with Boeing. Boeing was a great company and will be a great company again, I think, shortly. So we have to work with the companies, and they don't want to do that. It's crazy. They don't want to do that. I don't want stock buybacks, so I don't know where the problem is there, but I know that's one of the things that they're talking about. I do not want stock buybacks. I don't want to give a bailout to a company and then have somebody go out and use that money to buy back stock in the company and raise the price and then get a bonus, okay? So I may be Republican, but I don't like that. I want them to use the money for the workers. I want them to use the money for the company, to help the company in the airline business to take care of their planes and all of the things they have to do, including buying new planes. But I don't want stock. I don't want to have any stock buybacks. The Democrats are with me. I don't know what the problem is on that one because I can't imagine that is too tough. We want to be able to take care of our people. You're going to have things coming up. We're going to have some of the elements that they're talking about. They're down to, I mean, literally 95% of things that you would think that they wouldn't agree, and you'd think the Republicans wouldn't agree to it. And unemployment, as an example, is one of the things they talk about, and unemployment insurance. I think we're very close on that, but you know, right now they're not. So right now they're not there. But I think that the Democrats want to get there, and I can tell you for a fact the Republicans want to get there. And I don't think anybody actually has a choice. It's a bold package. It's a big package. We do have money for, one of the things is we do have money for saving small businesses. I don't imagine the Democrats, because we have a lot of money set aside for small businesses. We also have a lot of money set aside for big businesses. You know, the big, powerful companies that were powerful 4 weeks ago, and today they're overextended. Look at the cruise line. That's a tremendous business, a big business, very important to Florida. And it's unthinkable a month ago. It's just unthinkable. They were setting all sorts of records. They're building new ships. We can't let the cruise lines go out of business. I mean, that would be massive numbers of jobs for our country, and actually for the world, but for our country, it's a massive business, and it doesn't take much to keep them going. So we have to provide for that. But I think both the Democrats and the Republicans are agreed that we have to take care of our workers, and we're going to be doing that in numerous ways, including a substantial cash payment. Yeah, please.
When it comes to the Defense Production Act, we know that governors across the country all day today were pleading with you to utilize the DPA, saying that they need it specifically for that allocation piece that you mentioned, Mr. Navarro. Okay. Why not use it now if that would answer their pleas for help?
Well, we are using it now. The fact that I signed it, it's in effect. But, you know, we're a country not based on nationalizing our business. Call a person over in Venezuela, ask them how did nationalization of their businesses work out? Not too well. The concept of nationalizing our business is not a good concept. But I'll tell you why. As Peter said, we may have to use it someplace along the chain, but we're getting calls. Here's the beauty of it. If we go out and we want, let's say, masks, we don't know who to call on masks, but Hanes, who makes things of cotton, various elements, lots of things, it's a great company, they called us and they said, we're going to make millions of masks. We got a call today from 3M. There's a big article today, the head of 3M. They're going to make tremendous products, and they're more or less in that business. And if they're not, like for instance, General Motors spoke to us, Ford spoke to us about doing ventilators. The beauty is they're calling us. If you go the national route, nationalization route, we're going to tell a company to make a ventilator. They don't even know what a ventilator is. In the case of one company, they used to make them years ago, and they know how to make them. You know, it's a very complex piece of equipment, frankly. So what we're doing is, I think Peter said it maybe better than anybody's going to say it. We have the threat of doing it if we need it. We may have to use it somewhere along the supply chain in a minor way. But we have millions of masks being done. We have respirators. We have ventilators. We have a lot of things happening right now. So just the threat of using it. But using it's actually a big deal. I mean, when this was announced, it sent tremors through our business community and through our country. Because basically, what are you doing? You're talking about you're going to nationalize an industry, or you're going to nationalize. You're going to take away companies. You're going to tell companies what to do. The truth is, most people, nobody would know where to start. There are companies out there that you wouldn't think of that have called us that say, we can do ventilators. We used to do them years ago, and they can do them in large quantities. If I call companies and say, you build ventilators, they don't even know what a ventilator is. So it's really working out very well. One of the reasons I read the numbers to you is because we've given vast numbers of just about everything. We've taken it out of our supply, and we're restocking our supply. But we're really backing up the governors. The governors have to go out, do their things, and you have a lot of governors, they've done a fantastic job. You have some that haven't. Usually it's the ones that complain that have the problems. But we've had a great relationship, as an example, with Governor Cuomo, with Governor Newsom. We've had a great relationship with the state of Washington. Those are three hotbeds. Now, we're also dealing with other states. As the Admiral said yesterday, we're dealing with all of the states, actually, in one form or another. Some are very affected in a very minor way, where you have 2 people or 3 people. And I don't even mean deaths. I mean literally cases. And that's different than New York, where you have, you know, tremendous, where everybody, I lived there for a long time, everybody's extremely close, tight. And you have a lot of cases in New York. And we're helping Governor Cuomo. We're helping Governor Newsom. They've been total gentlemen. They want to get it done, and we want to get it done. But doing it the way we're doing it is much better. It's really much better.
But in terms of this, I'm asking about the supply chain. It's about allocation, not about manufacturing. So the companies, it's not about nationalizing the companies, it's about the allocation.
We coordinate with the states, and we are coordinated with the states. And for the most part, the coordination's been very good. Look, 3 days ago, I had a phone call with all the governors. I actually allowed the press to stay. They weren't supposed to stay. And one person in the media said, that was surprising. It's actually a little risky doing that, because we had Democrats and we had Republicans. And, you know, they're politicians and they always have something to say. Well, I took a lot of calls, and we really didn't get one nasty or bad response. They were thanking us for the job we did. And I had the press standing. I don't know if you were there. I don't think so. I had the press standing there watching. They weren't supposed to be there, but I said, let them stand there. The governors were very complimentary, very, very complimentary. And I watched over the last few days Governor Cuomo. I watched Gavin Newsom in California. I watched both of them, and they've been, you know, very complimentary. And those are really the hotbeds. And so we want to keep that going. I'm very proud of this country, and I'm frankly very proud of a lot of the politicians that normally we're fighting with. We have different views on things, you know, a little different view. But we're going to get to the same place. We have different views, but we're going to get to the same place. Yeah, please.
Yes, I wanted to ask if you're considering an executive order to free elderly, nonviolent criminals from federal prisons.
We have been asked about that, and we're going to take a look at it. It's a bit of a problem. But when we talk about totally nonviolent, we're talking about use of totally nonviolent prisoners. We are actually looking at that, yes.
And a quick I wanted to ask also, your administration eliminated a key position in China in July, a medical epidemiologist embedded in China's disease control agency, and it was just months before the first cases were spotted in Wuhan. So the question is basically why the post was eliminated. And
well, I could ask anybody. Would you like to take that one, Bob? But you know, this is just like all of the other stuff that you not you, but that the press was asking, all of which turned out to be, we actually gave CDC more money, not less money. They said we defunded. It turned out it was more money. Every one of those things that were said were 100% wrong. And this sounds like another one of them, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, as you know, CDC has offices all around the world right now to do our function to detect and prevent and respond to outbreaks where they occur. The China office is actually being augmented as we speak, and we've been embedded there for over 30 years. There's a reason they call it the Chinese CDC, because we've had that productive partnership.
Mr. President.
And I wish, again, our relationship with China is a very good relationship. I wish they told us 3 months sooner that this was a problem. We didn't know about it. They knew about it, and they should have told us. We could have saved a lot of lives throughout the world. If you look at what's happening in Italy and Spain and a lot of other countries, we could have saved a lot of lives throughout the world. Kelly?
Mr. President, given the diagnosis for Senator Paul and people being self-quarantined, what concerns do you have about the direct threat to the function of the Senate, the ability to get this important package that people are waiting for passed? And should Americans be expecting you to extend the 15 days, given the climate of how this is spreading at this point?
Well, I hope we won't have to. It's possible, but we'll have to see how that works. As far as the Senate is concerned, we are looking at some of the folks are feeling very good. Some are quarantined, but they're negative. It may be totally fine, okay? Others are positive. We're just finding this now for the first time. I mean, over the last 2 days, we found that.
Do you see it as a threat to the aid package that Americans are waiting for?
No, I don't see any threats at all. Honestly, I don't see any threats at all. It'll all work out. It is a question, and a very good question, I thought, that we are considering. Now, I don't know if you can do it constitutionally, but we are considering letting people vote, senators, congressmen and women, vote from a separate location, from a outside, namely a hospital or a home, depending on where they are. So we are looking at that. It's a little trickier question, most people would believe, but we are looking at that very strongly.
Mr. President, speaking of the Senate, I think Kelly was kind of alluding to it. While we've been up here, they weren't able to get the 60 votes to move the package for the cloture vote. I'm just curious, just your reaction to that, sir. And then, what is Mitch McConnell telling you and Secretary Mnuchin?
Well, we're dealing with them all the time, and we're dealing with Mitch. We're dealing with the other side. Everybody wants to get there. We'll see what happens. I think you'll get there. It's to me, it's not very complicated. We have to help the worker. We have to save the companies, because as soon as we're finished with this war, it's not a battle, it's a war. As soon as we're finished with this war, our country is going to bounce back like you've never seen before. But we have to get it to that position, and we have to make sure that those companies are whole, that they haven't been disbanded. Because if you do that, it's going to take much longer. So in a way, it's being penny wise if you don't. But we want to help the worker. We want to help the companies that the workers come from. Because if those companies go out of business, and that includes small businesses, we have a tremendous amount of small business work in there, you know that. Once they go out and they don't come back, that's a much longer period of building.
You mentioned off the top, sir, I apologize. There was a woman that was an American that was she being tortured? What was going on there, sir?
Bad things were happening to her in a certain country, and we're really under the feeling that we should keep it somewhat private until she's already been freed. And I have to tell you, General Milley and his people were unbelievable. They were not playing games. General Milley does not play games. He's a very interesting guy. They got her out. They got her out of a certain country where she was seriously abused, accosted, and whatever the maximum word is, other than death, that happened. But we got her out, and she's okay, and she's back with her parents.
Can I ask you one last question, sir? It's something I've just been curious about. Previous crises like the tsunami, Katrina, past presidents, they've called their predecessors and said, hey, I need you to step in, do something like that. Do you have any interest in reaching out to Presidents Bush, Obama, Clinton, Carter, or talking to them? I'm just curious if that's something you would consider or not.
Look, I have the best people in the world. I think we're doing an extraordinary job. If you look at, let's say the H1N1, you look at that whole That was a disaster. That was a tough period of time for our country. You look at so many other things that weren't handled very well, whether it's Katrina or something else. Look, I respect everybody, but I feel I have an incredible team, and I think we're doing an incredible job. When you look at the job we're doing, and all you have to do is look at the approval numbers on the job we're doing, I think we're doing an incredible job. So I don't want to disturb them, bother them. I don't think I'm going to learn much. And, you know, I guess you could say that there's probably a natural inclination not to call. Now, if I felt that if I called, I'd learn something, and that would save one life. It would save one life. I would make the call in 2 minutes, but I don't see that happening. Please.
Can I ask you about the comments that a couple of your former aides have said today? Gary Cohn said, is it time to start discussing the need for a date when the economy can turn back on? Whereas Steve Bannon is saying, drop the hammer today on the virus. We're going to have to take the pain up front. We have to shut it all down.
I saw both.
I want to ask you about the tension between the economic pain we're suffering and, of course, the virus itself and the casualty and deaths from that.
Well, look, I'm of the opinion we have to do great during this 14 days, during the 15-day period. We'll know at the end of 14 days, pretty much, we're going to have a pretty good idea how we're doing. I think you have to shut it down and you have to see, but, you know, there'll be a point at which we say, we're back in business, let's go. Those two statements are not mutually exclusive. You understand? I saw both of them today.
Well, I think
and they sort of they intermesh.
For more of a shutdown
well,
than we are now.
He's calling for a faster, just a brutal shutdown, and then open up maybe a little bit faster. So you know, there's that fine line. Look, we did a big shutdown when we wouldn't allow people from China that could have been very seriously infected. That were. When we cut that off very early. And then we cut Europe off very early, as you know. So that was also very
When do you start opening Main Street
well,
back up?
I can't tell you that. What I have to say is that I think we're going to have good results. I think the American people have been amazing. I think our stimulus package will get done, and it will be a tremendous package. We're really not, I mean, they may not have gotten those votes, but they're very close to getting a deal done. So I'd be surprised if they didn't. And if they don't, I think frankly, the American people will be very upset with the Democrats because the Republicans are ready to approve a deal. So the only reason a deal couldn't get done is pure politics. Yes, please.
Mr. President, despite your differences with New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, he says that the city is going to run out of basic hospital supplies by April. How do you prevent New York City from becoming the next Italy?
Well, he should have, you know, the hospital systems in various places. Some have been stocked and ready to go for nothing for this, nothing. This is beyond anything that anybody ever thought possible. I think you could really say this. Nobody can really, doctor, nobody can really say, oh, gee, this will happen. This is a very unique, and hopefully it will be unique for, you know, many, many centuries, you know, for a long time. Hopefully we don't see this again. But again, the systems are supposed to be ready, willing, and able. They're supposed to be ready to go. We are helping them a lot, and I have great love for New York City, and I have great love for New York State, and we're going to help them a lot. I mean, I was just saying, we're sending our ships up there. We're sending more than just this ship. We may be using, if we need, we'll be using some of the cruise ships that you've been reading about. We'll be using them also because they're very immediate and very quick. They can be there very quickly. We have good docking systems in the places that we're talking about. So we may be using some of the cruise liners that we're talking about. But no, I mean, I think Bill de Blasio is working very hard. I think he's trying very hard. It's a tough situation for him and every mayor because nobody's ever seen the scale. You know, when you hear you've given millions of masks and you've given hundreds of thousands of masks in a certain short period of time, and then you hear they need many, many more. You know, one of the things they have started with respect to masks is the sterilization process. Some are, you know, are really, it works very well. Others aren't really set up that way. You throw them out. But we have a sterilization process that's working very hard. Speaking of that, hand sanitizers, you know, when you asked the question on the companies and what's going on, we have many companies now. Companies that made whiskey, that made alcohol, they've now gone very quickly into the hand sanitizers and all of, you know, you've been reading about 3 or 4 big companies. We're doing incredibly well on that. There was no way if you took the existing companies that something like that could happen. But it happens almost, they'll call Peter Navarro or they'll call somebody. In one case, they called me. They said, we can do this, we can do that. We've had a lot of those calls where companies want to. There's a company in New Hampshire, a great company. They want to make ventilators. I'd never thought of them for ventilators, but they do make metal equipment and things out of metal. They'll be great. They'll make a great product. So, Peter, I think you're seeing a lot of that, right?
Sir.
Yes, please.
Mr. President, the bill that is being contemplated by the Senate right now has a fund that has hundreds of billions of dollars for the Treasury Department to use to bail out states and localities, as well as specific industries such as cruises and hotels. Will you commit publicly that none of that taxpayer money will go towards your own personal properties?
Every time I do it, like for instance, I committed publicly that I wouldn't take the $450,000 salary. It's a lot of money, whether you're rich or not. It's a lot of money, and I did it. Nobody cared. Nobody said thank you. Nobody said thank you very much. Now, I didn't commit legally. I just said, I don't want it. I don't want my salary. I work for zero. I don't want my salary. Nobody said, oh, thank you very much. But I guarantee you, if I ever took it, you would go out after me, you in particular, would go out after me like crazy. So I have no idea what they're talking about with regard to the one element. Everything's changing, just so you understand. It's all changing. But I have no idea. But every time I commit to do something, I committed to do many. Look, I ran, and everybody knew I was a rich person. I built a great company, and people knew that. But I agreed to do things I didn't have to. I still don't have to. But my company, I told the kids who are running it, I'm not running it, but I told them, don't deal with foreign companies. Don't deal. I didn't have to do that. I could have just ran, and I didn't have to do that at all. And instead of being thanked for, again, not agreeing to do it, but just for not doing it, I get excoriated all the time. So I've learned, let's just see what happens, because we have to save some of these great companies. They can be great companies literally in a matter of weeks. We have to save them. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can I go back to your announcement at the top about the National Guard and then also the medical structures that are going to be built? Okay, so you had said that there would be 8 large medical structures that will be built in California with more than 2,000 beds. And then I think I heard you say there would be 4 small medical structures in the state of Washington with 250 beds. And could you say what cities and areas those are going to be in specifically?
So we are filling the governor's request, and so we send that resource to them. They'll put it to best use. They'll put it to where they will have the most effect. So we don't dictate exactly where it goes. Again, it's a request from the state to the federal government for a certain asset, and those assets are sent to the governor can use it as he or she sees fit.
And you're still considering, you just said that using the cruise ships as well. So
if we need them, I hope we don't need them. I hope you're going to have great luck on Tuesday morning. We sent a lot of the medicine. We don't have to go into it again, but we sent a lot of the medicine to Governor Cuomo. I believe they already have it. And they have some very capable people. We spoke to Dr. Zucker, who is his primary representative on this, and we spoke to the governor himself. And I think he's excited about it like I'm excited about it. Now, will it work? I think it has a really good chance. I think it's worthwhile. Why should we be testing it in a test tube for a year and a half when we have thousands of people that are very sick? They're very, very sick. And we can use it on those people and maybe make them better. And in some cases, maybe save their lives. So Governor Cuomo told me they'll be using their supply, starting their supply on Tuesday morning. I think it's very exciting. I think because if that happens, much of what we're talking about with ships and hospitals and all of the things that we're doing and all of these masks and everything that we're ordering, ventilators, it's a whole different game if that happens. And we'll see. There's been some tremendous signs that this could work. Now, again, some doctors think it should go for years and testing, but, this has been something that's been around for many years. It's been phenomenal, strong, powerful drug for malaria. But we think it might work on this, based on evidence, based on very strong evidence. We're going to see. We're going to know on, sometime after Tuesday. But you'll have to ask Governor Cuomo. I think they're going to start the process. We've gotten them the drug. I think they're going to start the process of giving the drug through through mouth. And I think that starts on Tuesday morning, he said. And that'll be, I mean, I tell you what, I don't want to get anybody overly excited, but I'm very excited by that, by the prospect of it. Then in addition to that, they're working, NIH is working on vaccines and all, and they're making great progress. But the vaccine does have to be tested for a long period of time because you can't give, thousands, millions of people a vaccine and it turns out to be dangerous. So that does have to be tested. But this one's been taken for a long time, so we know pretty much one result. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to ask about China and President Xi. When was the last time you had a conversation with him?
Well, I don't want to exactly say that, but I have spoken to President Xi about this, specifically about this. And look, he doesn't want this. This is not something that he wants. And it happened. It happened to China. And one thing they told me, I was told by our great Secretary of Agriculture, Sonny Perdue, that China's been buying a lot of our farm product. And I'm looking at different pricing. But China has, despite all of this, and it started, this delayed it a little bit, obviously, but it started fairly recently. But China's buying, we made a new deal, as you know, with China, a very big trade deal. And China has been buying our agricultural product.
Masks. I mean, they've been a supplier of the United States of masks, of a lot of this equipment.
In fact, they're
Have you
sending
tried to
some
open those
masks.
back up?
They're sending masks to Italy. They are sending masks to Italy. We're in a very good process with masks. But I'm a little upset with China, I'll be honest with you, because as much as I like President Xi and as much as I respect the country and admire the country, I have great admiration for the country, what they've done in a short period of time. Of course, our previous presidents allowed that to happen. You should say thank you very much to all of them. But they should have told us about this. And I did ask him whether or not we could send some people in. They didn't want that. Out of pride, I think really out of pride. They don't want us sending people into China to help them. China's a strong country. They have their scientists and they have their doctors, very smart, a lot of people. But I did discuss that about sending our people in, and they didn't really respond. We went again, they didn't respond. If they went in, they would have been able to give us a much earlier indication. But we had an early indication. That's why I closed out China. I mean, I felt it was my instinct, but that's why I closed out China at a very early time. Please.
Mr. President, are undocumented persons welcome at testing sites, and can they show up and be tested without fear of being reported to immigration officials for possible deportation?
It's really a fair question. I think I'll let, would you like to answer that question? Please, please. Surgeon General.
We know from a public health perspective that it is important that people who have symptoms can get tested, but as you heard earlier, we are
regardless of citizenship.
Well, we know that the virus doesn't judge based on where you're from, and so it's important that we try to get people tested who have symptoms. But the important thing that we really want people to hear is that inpatients need to be tested. We need to prioritize our healthcare workers. And one thing I would like to say to you all very quickly, on behalf of the doctors on the task force, healthcare workers, we hear you. We hear you, and we absolutely are prioritizing your health and safety, making sure healthcare workers can get tested, inpatients can get tested, people at highest risk. But to answer your question, yes, we absolutely want to make sure people who have symptoms who could be spreading it can get tested.
Mr. Question. Mr. Surgeon General.
Department of Homeland Security addressed that issue a few days ago. Customs and Border Protection actually issued guidance that absent certain circumstances, Customs and Border Protection does not target emergency rooms or health clinics. And I would refer you to the website. They issued a very clear statement making it clear to any person that is in need of a test or medical care that Customs and Border Protection is not focusing on emergency rooms or health clinics or the drive-through clinics.
So that they could come in without fear of...
Yes, I'll answer that. And if that's not the policy, I'll make it the policy. And I was just saying, as Mike was saying that, the answer is yes, we will do those tests because I think in that case it's important. I think that if You could say illegal alien, you could say illegal immigrant, you could say whatever you want to use your definition of what you're talking about. We're all talking about the same thing. Yes, we will test that person, because I think it's important that we test that person, and we don't want to send that person back into wherever we're going to be sending the person, whether it's another country or someplace else, because, you know, we're now bringing them right out of our country. But yeah, we will test those people. Okay?
Mr. President, question for the Surgeon General.
Yeah,
Sorry, Mr. Surgeon General, a question. We were talking about this before the briefing. You know, a lot of folks, they're watching TV, they're reading up on this constantly. If you are not, you know, somebody who's got a pre-existing health condition, but you all of a sudden you go, you know, all of a sudden I just don't feel 100%. And then your mind just starts playing with you, right? You think, oh my God, you know, I coughed 3 hours ago. Was that a first sign? When should those people really start to say, okay, maybe I need to call the doctor? Because you don't want to flood them. But a lot of people that are probably healthy right now are thinking, whoa, wait, that's all I'm hearing about. That's all I can think about. When should I either call a doctor or get tested?
You need a test?
Well, I hope not.
I asked you before you came in if they'd been temperature checked.
Right? You better not.
The Vice President gave an important statistic this morning. Only 10% of the people who have symptoms who've been tested actually tested positive for coronavirus, meaning 9 out of 10 people who actually likely had symptoms do not have the coronavirus. So I want people to understand that so that they are reassured. I also want to direct people to a website we've been telling them about all the time, coronavirus.gov. Coronavirus.gov has information to walk you through the symptoms, fever, cough, shortness of breath, body aches, and what to do if you have symptoms or you're worried. The most important thing we can tell people is call your healthcare provider, talk to your healthcare provider. Information is at coronavirus.gov to walk you through when to come in and when and what to do.
And Mr. Vice President, you got tested yesterday. I'm just curious, sir. Can you tell us what that was like for you? A lot of people are going to be going through this. What were you standing by the phone? Were you just having a nice tea? I mean, what did you? Yeah, what was that like? And what did you do to kind of kill that time to keep your mind at ease?
He wasn't.
The test was very quick, but it goes a fair amount up into your sinuses, and it's not comfortable. And that's the reason it probably is a good opportunity to say again to any American looking on. If you don't have symptoms, you don't need a test. The current testing format, although they're evolving regularly now, we just mentioned that we think at the end of this week there'll be a new test, and there's all new technologies. I would say again to all the governors that are looking on and their state health officials, contact FEMA. We'll give you all the latest information on new testing that is available, including steps we're making where Americans would be able to test themselves and send it in.
For you, what was that like for you, sir?
Well, for me and Mrs. Pence, it was kind of a pinch. It was kind of invasive, but we were grateful for the support. Walter Reed Hospital processed the test very quickly. They had a lab at the hospital to be able to do that, and gave us the results quickly. But it also informed me. We were wondering during that time as a family. And it's one of the reasons the President's made it such a priority that we brought all these commercial labs together. And now more than 250,000 tests have been done. We believe we'll be caught up, if you will, by the middle of this week on a backlog of tests. But we announced today that we are directing commercial labs to prioritize people who are in the hospital for tests, as we want to continue to work with new technology and with the new focus and guidance from HHS to get the results of that as quickly as possible for every American. So if they have coronavirus, they can be properly treated, or they can have the peace of mind that they may have some other respiratory ailment, but not that.
Mr. President.
And you know, anybody that knows Karen Pence knows this, because the Vice President told me. He said she actually handled it better than him. Right? That's true, right? I didn't handle it so well either. Don't worry about it.
President, Speaker Pelosi earlier today said that the House may introduce its own bill. Are you willing to work with the Speaker on a House bill? And given what happened in the Senate just a short time ago, what are you willing to do to get this bill over the finish line, given the urgency? Secondly, did you send a letter to North Korea's Kim Jong-un seeking cooperation with the coronavirus? And if so, what type
with numerous countries. If they need help, we'll give them help. There's nobody has what we have, especially with the new tests that are coming out. North Korea, Iran, by the way, and others. We are open for helping other countries. And there's a very serious time, and North Korea is going through something. Iran is going through something very, very strong. Iran is really going through a very difficult period with respect to this, as you know. So I've put it's really a glad hand, it's all it is, to North Korea, to Iran, and to many other countries. And we're working with, as the doctor can say, we're working with many countries with respect to the problems that they have. Again, it's over 140 countries right now. But North Korea, Iran, and many other countries, we will help, and we're willing to. As an example, this new test, if this new test works out, where instead of going through what we all went through with this rather difficult test, to put it nicely, we would have, is that just a swab on the tongue, doctor? Or how does that work?
It's a similar swab, but they can work on doing it in the
Not to the same. Not to the same.
all the way
It doesn't go all the way up and hangs right under your eye, right? So that's a tough test. So if we do that, the procedure, the test, and nobody has this in the world. Nobody has this. This is developed by us. We think it's going to be certified soon. We think it's going to be very good. But if we have that, we'll be able to help a lot of countries. Please.
What about Speaker Pelosi, sir? What about Speaker Pelosi?
We're going to work with everybody to see if we can get something done. Please.
I mean, just to follow up on that, are you willing to work directly with Speaker Pelosi?
Yeah, we'll work
as she
with
writes a House bill?
whoever we have to. We have to help the American worker. We have to help the countries from which the American workers, I mean, they came out of these companies, they were doing phenomenally well. You saw where payroll was going way up, where wages were going way, way up. There's never been a time like this. We can't lose those companies, and we want the worker to be happy. And we're being, I think, more generous than anybody's ever been. We want to take care of the worker, but we want to make sure that when we win the war, it's only a question of, it's when, not if. When we win the war against the virus, we want to make sure those companies are ready to charge forward, not that they've been disbanded because we were penny wise and dollar foolish.
There are factories around the world that produce medical protective equipment that are used in European hospitals. They've been certified for use at the highest level in European hospitals. Yeah. Is the FDA and your administration willing to look at a waiver for that equipment to be sold from those factories?
Well, we were asked that question a little while ago, and the answer is we may, but we may not need it. We do a very high standard. Our standard is higher. Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was hoping you could give some guidance to American families who are anxious about their financial futures. Earlier today, on one of the Sunday morning shows, the Secretary of the Treasury, Steve Mnuchin, was talking about the millions of Americans who are impacted by these shutdowns that are happening in cities and sometimes full states.
Yeah.
And Secretary Mnuchin said that this shutdown, this lockdown could last 10 to 12 weeks, perhaps early into June. Given that, would you consider another fiscal stimulus, another check to these families?
We're going to see what happens. Hopefully we won't need it, but we might. But we're going to see what happens. Look, the greatest thing we can do is win the war. The war is against the virus. That's the war. We do that, I really believe everything's going to fall into place. It's going to be beautiful. I call it a pent-up demand. People are dying to go out to a restaurant. People are dying to go onto airplanes. I think there's a tremendous pent-up demand. You may be surprised to the degree. I think it's going to go very rapidly because this wasn't a financial crisis, just the opposite. This was a medical crisis.
Did you sell stocks, Mr. President? Did you or your family sell stocks?
No, I don't have stock. I own things that...
Did you make any alternates to investments in advance of this?
No, I don't even think about it. You know, it's very interesting that you ask a question like that. You know, nasty question, and yet it deserves to be asked, I guess. What I've done by deciding to run, I knew this the first day. I said, if I win, it's going to cost a lot of money. It cost me billions of dollars to become president, to be president of the United States. In things that would normally be run at a certain thing, even people that don't like me because they think I'm too tough on the border. Now, some people love me for it. Other people don't like me at all. You know, it's very funny. My wife, we were at a charity event in New York City. I had just announced that I was running, and we were at the Robin Hood Foundation at the convention center, which now we're going to be converting to hospitals for Governor Cuomo. Right? And I was walking in, And there was a smattering of boos and a smattering of cheers. I was getting both. And our very popular First Lady, she's turned out to be a very popular, people have great respect for her, but a very popular First Lady said to me, that's strange. I've never heard anybody booing you. That was very early on, because I think I called for strong borders, or I called for something that other people don't like, you know. And I knew this would happen. I knew it was going to happen. But the fact that I ran, and I knew as soon as I announced, when I ran, I said, it's going to cost me a fortune, not only in terms of actual costs. Look at my legal costs. You people, everybody is suing me. I'm being sued by people that I never even heard of. I'm being sued all over the place and doing very well, but it's unfair. But I'll say this, in terms of running for president, and I don't think rich people, Michael Bloomberg spent, now is determined, almost $1 billion, and look what happened. I think it's very hard for rich people to run for office. It's far more costly. It's just it's a very tough thing. Now, with all of that being said, I'm so glad I've done it, because, you know, there are a lot of rich people around, got a lot of rich friends, but they can't help and they can't do what I've done in terms of helping this country. We are doing things. We got sidetracked by the invisible enemy, but you know, when you look at what we've done, I said before, with the veterans, with all of the things we've done, especially choice, but when you look at all of accountability, when you look at all of the things that we've done, rebuilding the military, the tax cuts, which thank goodness we had the tax cuts, because we had cushion. Oh, without that, this would have been catastrophic. We had a big cushion. I mean, with all of the losses that you've seen in the stock market, we're basically back, and with this horrible thing, if this would have happened before, you would have had nothing left. This was all cushion. But I will say that it cost me billions of dollars to be president, and especially with all the money I could have made for the last 3 or 4 years, and I didn't because I was being president. I have no interest in it. I'm allowed to. You know, I don't know if you know, George Washington, they say, he was a rich man, supposedly, relatively rich. And he ran the presidency, and he also ran his business. They say he had 2 desks. Nobody complained until I came along. I got elected as a rich person, but nobody complained until I came along. So it cost me billions of dollars to be president, and I am so happy I did it, because who cares? Who cares? I'm really happy with the job we're doing, and I'm glad that this team and me are here for this horrible thing. I mean, it's a number of people have said it, but, and I feel it, actually. I'm a wartime president. This is a war. This is a war, different kind of a war than we've ever had. And when you look at the economics of the war, in the past we used to stimulate to get people jobs. Now we're stimulating to protect people because we don't want them to work, because we want them to stay away from each other. We don't want them to gather, social gathering. So we're paying billions of dollars, more than that, so that they don't gather. They don't, because we have to defeat this virus, and we will. But it cost me billions and billions of dollars to be president, and I am so happy I did it.
Mr. President, can I ask about foreign countries, please? I realize that your priority is to Americans and, of course, this nation. But what about, have you ever considered supporting the foreign countries who are also fighting this global pandemic?
Well, we do help foreign countries. I mean, that was the other question. Right. And I'm honored to help. And the doctor has helped. The Surgeon General is speaking to other countries all the time. They're asking him questions. What do we do? Nobody's ever seen anything like this. They're calling our people all of the time. And yes, I have let it be known that we'll help people, including North Korea, including Iran, and including many other countries. It's very important to do that.
Are you considering any financial support for them? Let me quote to you two retired, a retired general and a retired admiral from the U.S. Global Coalition. No matter how successful we are in fighting the threat of COVID-19 pandemic at home, we'll never stop it unless we're also fighting it around the world. So financially, is there anything in the stimulus bill? And then are you considering any financial?
No, not in the stimulus bill, but we are very much, I mean, we give away billions of dollars for, as an example, AIDS in Africa. We're still fighting that battle. It's a tremendous battle, tremendous war also. But we're fighting it here, as you know, in 10 years. Now it's 8 years because I started it. Should have been started before, long before I got here, because they had the answer even before. But we're fighting that battle. We'll be AIDS-free in approximately 8 years. It looks like that is going to happen. We're spending a lot of money, but we're spending a lot of money with other countries. If you look at the aid that we give to other countries, we give billions and billions and billions of dollars to other countries. And a lot of times I say, you know, we could save a lot of money. We shouldn't have. And then they come in. I say, what's it used for? It's used to fight malaria. It's in countries that are very poor. It's used to fight AIDS in Africa. It's used to fight many other things, many other things. And I don't think I've ever said no. I can't. It's just so terrible. Countries that we have really, we're not involved with them very much, other than there would be tremendous death. Tremendous death. I mean, you can get a list, and I could get you a list. We give away billions of dollars to other countries, and we are giving away a lot in terms of everything, and probably we'll end up economically doing something for other countries. But when I'm presented with these lists, that yes, sir, in Africa we're fighting AIDS or we're fighting something else, I tell you what, I start off by saying, you know, we could save a lot of money, and then by the time they walk those lists into my office, I say, we have to keep doing that. That's humanity you're talking. How about one more question? Yes, please.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you about the states that have not yet issued stay-at-home orders. So in Texas, for example, the hospitals have said that they expect to run out of beds by the end of April if the governor does not issue a stay-at-home order. Dallas County just announced an order. It's not.
Well, states have to call. That's a great governor. You're talking about Greg Abbott in Texas, and he's a great governor, and he knows what he's doing. A lot of the areas that he's talking about, a lot of the counties he's talking about, are not very strongly affected. You know, it's a very different kind of a place and a great place. But I have total confidence in Governor Greg Abbott.
You're okay with the lack of uniformity between
yeah, sure,
states
because every state is different. Every state's different. I mean, Idaho, West Virginia, Iowa, Nebraska are much different than New York, than California, Los Angeles as an example, or San Francisco. They're much different. I mean, it's much different. The hot spots right now are state of Washington, and probably number one by far right now is New York. That's the hot spot like no other hot spot. And California is a hot spot, but New York right now is the leader. There's no question. All right, final question.
Thank you, sir. Your administration is backing a lawsuit to invalidate the Affordable Care Act. And given that people are losing their jobs now and need health care more than ever, would you consider rethinking your position on that?
Well, that's a lawsuit coming out of Texas again. That was headed up by Texas. And what we want to do is get rid of the bad health care and put in a great health care. And we will always, I will say this, I can make this commitment to you, the Republican Party is fully backing pre-existing conditions. Now, if we could get a great health care plan, which would need the House to do, but if we can get a great health care plan, we will only do it if we have pre-existing conditions totally back. So we're backing pre-existing, but would like to get rid of bad health care. Now, we are running the bad health care much better than it was ever run, and we're making it better. But it could be much better than it is. And so what we want to do is terminate it, have a great health care, but we will only do it with pre-existing. We will back pre-existing conditions, okay?
But what if the Supreme
Thank you all very much. Thank you. We'll be back. We'll have a meeting tomorrow.
Mario Diaz-Balart, not Jose. If you wanted to clarify that, you had said Jose. Works for us.
Mario.
Yes.
Oh, did it take Jose? I watched Jose on NBC.
Thank you, sir.
The other night. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Donate blood. Donate blood.
be back in a little bit. Thank you guys for being here. I gotta get up and do something. So I'll be back in a little bit. Thanks for joining on that. Let's just root out this virus. You heard him. It's a war. For nothing is secret that will not be revealed, nor anything hidden that will not be known and come to light. Therefore, whatever you have spoken in the dark will be heard in the light, and what you have spoken in the ear in the inner rooms will be proclaimed on the housetops. Ah, the Patriots. I come to you heavy-hearted this morning because of the shape of our country. I do love all the Patriots, and I am very proud of each and every one of you. We have gone through a journey together that we will never forget in the near future. We can never let this happen again. Now, what I am about to show you should not shock you at this point. We have done all the training, and we have paid attention. Let's take a look really quickly at a glimpse of what is happening right at this very moment. Remember their symbolism. Take a look in the background, take a look in the foreground, pictures behind them, the colors of clothes they're wearing, and just the general demeanor. This one isn't new of Tom, but relevant.
Everybody at Spade, woohoo! It's so weird without tons of applause and standing O's. I'm live from the Lights Out bunker. We're gonna try to do stuff from my house. It's not super live, but together where they put pins, I don't even know what happens. But it sucks, and she's laying down, so my brother gives me updates. He always wants me to call him, so now it's all Kanye. He's all caps all the time. He's like, call me right now. But of course it's my mom, so I call him, but it's never anything. I mean, this all rides on Tom Hanks. Let's be honest. Tom Hanks, national treasure. I love him. We did SNL together. He's a fucking stud. But he's down in Australia like Quentin Quarantino, and I don't like the fact that he's not in the box. Forget Willow Smith. Let's get Tom Hanks in a clear box and watch him. Because if Tom Hanks pulls through, we are going to be so stoked. It's all riding on Tom Hanks, you guys. If anything happens to Tom Hanks, fuck, that shit's over, dude. I'm just going to be like, on my roof. Bye.
Use all your training and listen. These people are losing it. These are codes put out to their other people. Here's this loudmouth piece. Look at the picture behind him. Interesting.
Now, and they from us. Trump, meanwhile, has a catchy little nickname for the coronavirus. He now calls it the Chinese virus every chance he gets. Because, they say a great way to prevent a virus from spreading is to name it something racist. That way people keep it on the down low. I don't know why he does this. Actually, I do know why he does this. It's to deflect blame away from him. It's like when he started calling Eric and Don Jr. the Ivana kids. Right now, we are basically living
Russia collusion. How do you think Russia feels there, Jimmy? Yeah, this is interesting indeed. Notice her color of outfit.
And just basically everybody, because it's the safe thing to do. And so I nominate Michelle Obama, Jen Aniston, Courtney Cox, Bruno Mars, Leo DiCaprio, and The Weeknd.
Hanks and his wife, have you heard? I heard.
Yeah, Tom Hanks is out of the hospital.
Nice.
Which I heard a rumor today from a showbiz insider, Mary.
Yeah.
That Tom Hanks never really had the coronavirus. That Tom Hanks' name is about to come out in a very ugly way.
What?
Yeah, that's all I'm going to say. I don't know if it's true, and if I go through any other details, I'll get sued.
I wash my hands.
But I was told by a very knowledgeable showbiz source, very knowledgeable,
Interesting.
that the rumor is in big-time showbiz circles that Tom Hanks actually made this up because his name could be popping out in a very ugly showbiz scandal. That's all I'm going to say. But I don't know if it's true. I know. And see, here's the other thing. Everybody ought to feel better because if Tom Hanks had the coronavirus and now Tom Hanks is better, then everybody ought to be excited about that because he's Tom Hanks. Everybody loves Tom Hanks.
Right.
I've never heard one person say, man, that Tom Hanks is a horrible guy. He's mean, he's rude, he's nasty.
Never.
Never heard it ever.
Right.
Never.
Right.
Now, if what I heard today in a rumor is true, that perception could change.
Oh.
But I don't know. See, look at you, Mary. You're already,
Right.
Mary is almost about to cry.
Right, I couldn't take it. That's enough.
Well, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how that happens.
I'm going to go wash my hands.
By the way,
Hey guys, I'm really stressed out right now. It's been coming to my attention that a lot of Trump supporters have been figuring out the truth about me and my family, you know, being in the, you know what I'm talking about. And I don't know what to do right now because everything's starting to come to light. I mean, these extremely reliable websites like 4chan, 8chan have been exposing shit. And it's like if somebody wrote it on the internet, you know it must be true. And it is true. So it's like, I don't know how this is going to affect our whole New World agenda. Ever since The Simpsons predicted my dad being the spokesperson for the coronavirus, even though they didn't predict anything, it's been troublesome, to say the least. I guess I'm just going to have to work extra hard at my human sacrifices. I'm late for one right now, and I'm a little hungry, so I might eat someone's pineal gland on the way. But just know that we're watching you, and if you're talking shit on the internet, you're going to be the first people sent to the FEMA camps. So,
Man, I hope every one of these bastards get what they deserve.
Prosecutors say next to be indicted will be Harper gave
What?
misleading statements
Indicted?
finances about 1 minute before the company.
Indicted?
That's not fair. They made you go on that show.
You hear what they said, Jane? I'm gonna be indicted.
Yeah, but you only said what they told
Indicted,
you.
Jane! Indicted! I'm gonna be indicted!
No, wait, it's gonna be okay.
Indicted!
Honey, Dick.
Indicted!
Honey.
I'm gonna be indicted!
Hold it, they can't. It's gonna be okay. Just calm down.
I can't calm down, I'm gonna be indicted! Indicted!
of central banking. The economy is imploding. Expect all fingers pointing at the Fed. Central banking is the single biggest threat for humanity. The promise of socialism is the justification to plunder. The economy is in a meltdown. The world's monetary system is being deliberately destroyed. Consequently, the economic signals that guide the markets, which in a free market are supposed to represent the supply and demand decisions of billions of people, have up to now all been totally false, despite frequent denials by the central banks and most mainstream economists. These distortions in the market are a result of intentional manipulations of currency and precious metal values around the world by these central bankers, crafted in response to demand for competing export opportunities, easy money, and cheaper credit by governments. The world is indoctrinated to believe that paper money, the symbol of wealth, is that can deliver all the benefits of the free market, while gold is a barbarous, useless metal. This, of course, isn't true. All central banks are owned by Rothschild. All these banks are responsible for the economic problems. Therefore, all these banks must be brought down together. In other words, we must bring down the entire Rothschild banking system. We must break away from the central banking system and return to a people's currency system by implementing a people's economy. It should be an economy in which we, the people, are in charge and in full control of the money supply. You know, like our Constitution says. Most people overlook this aspect of the economy, but this monetary system is a great part of the deep state's power. By controlling the currency system of every country, the people of the world are easily controlled, with economic growth instituted on the base of fraud and corruption. That's the reason why these central banks don't want to be audited. The banking system is riddled with waste, fraud, abuse, crime, corruption, blackmail, deception. And when one takes a deeper look into the governments that are factually based on this Rothschild system, it's all about crime and corruption. It is the exact same thing that takes place in the financial sector. What needs to be done is the entire economic system needs to be brought to its knees, like they've brought countries. While all the crimes of the complicit banksters needs to be exposed. But before they are brought down, Trump is continually blaming the central bank for the bad economy, over and over again. Why? In order to waken people up, so they are awake to these truths and eventually better understand and see this gigantic crime network for what it is, working against humanity. Meanwhile, Trump has tricked the MSN, mainstream media, to go along with him, where they are too now blaming the Fed bank system for deteriorating the economy. It is impossible to improve the current economy with a financial system that is based on this debt. The whole system has to be destroyed. The power must be given back to the people, since all financial schemes are malicious Rothschild inventions, including institutions like the BIS, the IMF, the ECB, the WB, the BOJ, so on, so forth. By raising the interest rates, the system will break down, at which time the focus can be shifted to the Fed, the ECB, the BOJ, etc. Central banking is the single biggest threat for humanity. The central bank is the biggest threat to the world. The amount of control and power that a central bank has in each country is simply off the charts. No one else has so much power, enabling them to make or break countries by putting countries into debt. Matter of fact, the only thing that gives our money value is how much of it is in circulation. Therefore, the power to regulate the money supply is also the power to regulate its value, which is also the power to bring entire economies and societies to its knees. Look no further than in the 1930s here in America. Now the central banks consequently do exactly what they want. Once a country is put into debt, for then they have the leverage to control them. They know this very well. They've studied it, they've practiced it, and they've done it in real time for centuries. This truly is the single biggest threat to the world. That is the reason this financial system has got to be destroyed, while at the same time making sure that never again does a central bank wiggle its way into existence anywhere. The people have a right to coin their own currency. Nowadays, governments are devaluing the money constantly, causing everything that people have worked for to disappear right before their very eyes. We simply need to return to a real asset-backed monetary system without a private central bank, and let the people take control. Now keep in mind, the Federal Reserve Central Bank is the last remaining game of the deep state. The Federal Reserve is its backbone. Reports suggest that the alliance is preparing for one last push on the deep state by proposing to end the Fed. Now this termination will be the final blow that will render the deep state powerless, ensuring their complete demise. There's no turning back for them this time. The course of humanity will be changed in the blink of an eye. It will be shocking, and many who are oblivious to the truth will be overwhelmed and most likely in disbelief. The beginning of a very painful process of awakening for those who are not yet awake. I'm Michael. This is a Patriot Hour. God bless, Godspeed to each and every one of you worldwide. Where we go one, we go all. And remember, this is not about religions or party affiliation. Evil is everywhere. There are no drawn lines, no boundaries. Good versus evil. There is nothing more precious than our children. The choice to know will be ultimately yours. These people are sick, and good will always defeat evil. And we understand that there is extreme fatigue and frustration regarding the wheels of justice and how they move slow, but exclude your emotion and your personal desire. Instead, use logic and critical thinking based on situational awareness. What does it take to undo a lifetime of evil and corruption and infestation to the highest levels in the span of less than 2 years with a corrupt DOJ and FBI and etc. and so on? This is process and planning of law and order, a military operation at its finest. God bless.